How to Stay Well by Christian D. Larson, 1912. How to Stay Well. The free ebook. globalgreyebooks.com/how-to-stay-well-ebook.html. Table of Contents. Chapter 1. The New Way to Perfect Health. Chapter 2. The Metaphysical Process of Cure. Chapter 3. The Curative Power of Thought. Chapter 4. The Inner Force of Thought. Chapter 5. Renew your mind and be well. Chapter 6. How the mind can produce health. Chapter 7. How to maintain perfect health. Chapter 8. The real man is always well. Chapter 9. Realizing the perfect health within. Chapter 10. Purity of mind and body. Chapter 11. The Happiness Cure. Chapter 12. How to rest and recuperate. Chapter 13. Letting go of your ailments. Chapter 14. How the subconscious creates health. Chapter 15. The power of mind over body. Chapter 16. The relation of mind and matter. Chapter 17. The greater powers in man. Chapter 18. The higher curative forces. Chapter 19. The use of spiritual power. Chapter 20. How to enter the silence. Chapter 21. The use of positive affirmations. Chapter 22. Statements of truth and selected affirmations. Chapter 23. Chief Essentials in Prevention and Cure. Chapter 24. Practical Helps to Good Health. Chapter 1. The New Way to Perfect Health. Introduction. There are many systems of healing, and their number is growing steadily, but there is no single system in existence as yet that is based on all the laws of life. Disease comes from the violation of one or more of the laws of life, therefore, it can be cured only by bringing mind and body back again into harmony with those laws that have been violated. But if the system of healing employed ignores certain laws, it is unable to bring mind and body back into harmony when those certain laws are violated. Here we find the real cause of failure in all systems. A system that is only physical can produce cures when certain physical laws are violated, but it is powerless when the malady comes from the violation of moral or mental laws. A system that ignores all laws except a few mental laws may produce cures when it is those few mental laws that have been violated, but when the trouble comes from the violation of other laws, such a system can do nothing. It is, therefore, simple to understand that a complete system of healing must not only recognize all the laws of life, but must embody exact scientific methods for correcting all the possible violations of those laws. Such a system must be both physical and metaphysical and must have the understanding of all the laws of life as its foundation. That such a system could cure everything is a foregone conclusion, and that it is possible to formulate such a system every thinker must admit. There is so much knowledge in the world today on the subject of health that no one ought to be sick anymore, but the fact that most people you meet are ailing in some way, proves that this knowledge is not bringing practical results. The cause is lack of system. Therefore, if we can formulate all of this knowledge into a complete working system, and we can, we shall have the privilege of rendering a great service indeed. We all agree that it is everybody's privilege to have perfect health, and when we study the subject carefully we must admit that it is possible for everybody to secure perfect health. There are no incurable diseases. When we encounter ailments that do not respond to the cures we employ, the cause is simply this, that the methods we employ do not reach the laws that have been violated. But there are methods that can reach those laws. For every ill there is a remedy, because every negative has its own positive, and there is no wrong that cannot be made right. If we have the power to violate a certain law, we have also the power to correct that violation, but we cannot correct the matter unless we understand the law that has been misapplied. Therefore, if our system of healing is to be complete, it must be based upon the understanding of every law in human nature, metaphysical as well as physical. To establish such a system, one of the first essentials is to remove every form of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. That truth can come from all kinds of sources and through all grades of mentalities is a fact that we all ought to be familiar with in this age, and when we recognize this fact we will not confine our research to the limits of any one of the regular schools. Millions of people have been sent to their graves because prejudice has refused to try something else, and thousands are still going the same way every year for the same reason, but there are many ways of doing things, and, since it is everybody's privilege to live a long life and enjoy health as long as he lives, no person should be left to suffer and die until every possible method of relief has been tried. Those who are engaged in the healing of the sick are not dealing justly with the public unless they are prepared to employ and recommend everything that is known to have healing power, and they are not competent to decide as to what does not possess healing power unless they have made a personal test, or personally witnessed such a test. We daily hear intelligent and well-educated people declare that there is nothing in this or that particular system of thought, but upon what do they base their conclusions? Prejudice, or the habit of accepting mere public opinion as truth, is usually the cause of such narrow views, and in the meantime millions suffer and thousands die on account of those views. The fact is that the more we learn, the more convinced we become that there is something in everything, that every system has its virtues, and every belief its latent truth. To find this virtue in every system, and bring forth the hidden truth in every belief, and then arrange them all into a working system for everyday, practical use, this must be our purpose. Life is too important to be cut short on account of prejudice, ignorance, or narrow-mindedness, and the joy of living a large and full life is so great that no one should for a moment be deprived of its pleasure. The new age demands completeness, the best of everything for everybody, the removing of all barriers, that all truth from all sources may minister to all minds. And when all minds will come together and work in such a spirit, the full emancipation of the race will be at hand, and the coming of a fairer day will no longer be a dream. But it is all possible, and what is possible will surely come to pass. With this spirit in mind we shall proceed to outline what we consider to be a complete system of prevention and cure, a system that can bring health to everybody. The value of health. To do one's best in life, to fully enjoy life, to get everything of worth from life that life has to give, to fulfill the purpose of life and realize in the fullest measure any aim, ambition, or ideal that one may have in view in life, perfect health is necessary. Perfect health should be sought by everybody and sought with unceasing persistency, but it should not be sought simply because it ensures the comfort and the well-being of the individual. It should be sought principally because it is an absolute necessity to the full use and right use of everything that has worth in human existence, and we are here to make the largest and best use of all that is in us. To fail in health is to fail, in a measure, in everything. To continue in poor health is to continue in a condition where no faculty or power can give itself justice. To add to one's health is to make it possible to add to one's power, one's worth, one's usefulness and one's efficiency, and to gain perfect health is to gain possession of one of the most important factors in the making of human life all that nature demands it should be. It is in perfect health alone that man can be true to himself, that he can be true to his work, that he can be true to the race. Perfect health, therefore, is not a mere matter of personal comfort, though that in itself is a great deal. We all have the right to personal comfort to the very highest degree, but perfect health is more, vastly more. It is a necessary element in all the workings of nature, it is an indispensable factor in the great universal plan. The new view of health. We have recently discovered that it is natural to be well, that it is possible for everybody to be perfectly well, and that perfect health can be secured by all through methods that are not beyond the understanding or ability of anyone. In the past we looked upon sickness as inevitable, now we look upon every form of ailment as positively wrong. We do not criticize or condemn the man who is sick, we give him sympathy and practical help instead, as we have no right to condemn anybody. Nevertheless we insist that he should know better, and we are making it our personal business to see that he does know better. The new view demands that no one should be sick at all, that no one should be incapacitated for a moment, that no one should ever be compelled to suspend physical or mental activity on account of ill health, and even more than that, it demands that no one has a right to be sick. And the new view is not irrational, on the contrary, it is based upon the most substantial facts in modern science. It is not possible to become sick unless one violates the laws of life, which include the physical, the mental, the moral, and the spiritual. But no one need violate any of these laws at the present time nor henceforth, as the key to the understanding of the right use of all natural law is now within the reach of everybody. The new view, therefore, demands perfect health of all, and demands it with the same right as it demands manhood, womanhood, morality, justice, liberty, truth. The purpose of this study. The chief purpose of this course of study is to present a complete and practical system of life, through which the new view of health may be realized, that is, a system that will enable anyone to get well and stay well no matter what his physical or mental condition may be at the present time. This study will aim to present all the facts known in the science and art of attaining health. It will give due attention to all efficient methods of cure, with special attention to those that have proved themselves to be the best, and will aim to give instructions with regard to the use of those methods that all can readily and successfully apply. It will explain in the clearest and simplest manner possible the real cause of disease, and how every ailment known to man may be prevented as well as cured. And it will aim to carry out this broad and far-reaching purpose by turning the light of exact science upon the whole nature of man, his spiritual and mental nature as well as his physical nature. In brief, this course of study will aim to present sound, thorough and practical information concerning those principles, laws, and methods that will, by whomsoever applied, lead to the very highest degree of health, strength, and wholesomeness. The cause of disease. It is natural to be well, therefore, the presence of disease indicates that the human system is not in harmony with nature, and as it is not possible to get out of harmony with nature without violating one or more of nature's laws, we conclude that all disease must come from the violation of natural law, but to refrain from such violation and thereby avoid disease, it is necessary to know, first, what constitutes natural law, and second, what to do to continue in harmony with natural law. Complete information, however, on these important subjects has not been given in the past. A few of the physical laws of nature have been studied and carefully observed, but little or no attention has been paid to such other laws as might operate in conjunction with human activity. For this reason vast numbers have become sick without being able to arrive at the cause. Living in the belief that they are caring for themselves properly, they could see no reason why they should not remain well, but in caring for themselves they observed certain laws only, while others equally important were ignorantly and completely ignored. To enable everybody to avoid all disease by living in harmony with all the laws of nature, we must understand the sphere of the natural, so as to include all activity that may transpire anywhere in the world in which we may act, think, and live. In brief, we must study and observe mental and moral laws as well as physical laws, because they are all natural laws, laws that are so closely connected with the actions of man that he will either use them or misuse them, as the case may be, nearly every hour of his existence. The following outline and division of the subject will therefore prove valuable in connection with this part of the study. Violation of physical laws. We have heard much about physical exercise, but the truth is, that not one person in 1,000 exercises his body properly. The majority pay no attention to the subject, and therefore most of their muscles do not receive sufficient exercise, and a large percentage of those who do give the matter attention, overdo it, so that in either case the proper exercise is barely secured. The same is true of breathing. Natural law demands a certain kind of breathing, but there are very few that comply with that demand. With regard to nourishment, we are face to face with the same condition. Foods that should not be taken are taken by the majority nearly every day, and there are very few people who do not eat too much. The other physical laws are misused more or less in the same way. It is readily seen, therefore, that causes of disease are produced in abundance almost daily in the physical life of the average person, but all those causes can be prevented both easily and completely. Violation of moral laws. The lack of vital energy is one of the chief causes of the ills of man, and all immoral thoughts or actions tend to deplete the vital energy of the system. We have frequently been told that certain things are wrong, but we have not been told why. Therefore, we have doubted the sinfulness of those particular actions. When we find, however, that such actions almost invariably drain the system of vital energy, thereby placing the system in a condition where all kinds of disease may get a foothold, we understand why they are wrong. Whenever we do anything that will decrease or lower the natural amount of vital energy, we violate some of the most important laws of nature, and at the same time we originate those causes that are responsible for more than 1/3 of the ills of the race. Violation of mental laws. To be in harmony with nature, the mind should always be in a state of harmony with itself, and should always be wholesome in its actions and tendencies. To permit mental disorder in any form is therefore a violation of natural law, and it is a well-known fact that mental disorder is nearly always followed by physical disorder. The consequent physical disorder may in many instances be too slight to produce actual illness in the body, but it will in every case interfere more or less with the normal functions of the body. And if that particular disorder is continued, as it usually is, physical diseases will be the final result. To permit such mental states as worry, fear, anger, hatred, envy, gloom, depression, discouragement, dread, anxiety, grief, antagonism, revenge, excitability, and all other mental states of a similar nature, is to violate natural law, and such violation always leads to physical and mental weakness, and frequently to actual disease. To fear disease, to think of disease, to expect disease or to suggest the possibility of disease to oneself or others, is likewise a violation of natural law, and such violation leads to ailment of some kind in the majority of cases. How the misuse of the mind and the entertaining of wrong states of mind may cause disease, is therefore simply understood, and it has been estimated by close observation, that most of the ills of the human race come originally from this cause, but, as is true of all other adverse causes, it can be prevented or removed completely. Prevention and cure. Since all ills come from the violation of natural law, all that is necessary to remove an ailment is to restore the human system to perfect harmony with natural law, and for the same reason all that is necessary to prevent disease is to maintain the human system in continual harmony with natural law, but it is not possible to live in complete harmony with the laws of nature unless we understand them all. To be in harmony with physical law is not sufficient, neither is it sufficient to be in harmony with the mental or moral laws. To continue in perfect health we must be in harmony with all the natural laws, and to restore health we must restore harmony in that particular part of the human system where disorder is found. If the ailment comes from the violation of mental law, we may employ all the hygiene in the world and the best medical treatment to be secured without securing any results whatever. It is only when we restore harmony and order in the field of that particular mental law that results will be secured in that case. In every case we must know what law has been violated before we can effect a cure, and we must adopt that method that can restore the system to perfect harmony with the law that has been violated. This, however, necessitates a complete study of all those laws of nature that act in the life of man, that is, the moral and the mental as well as the physical. To prevent disease we must know all those laws so that we may live in harmony with them all. To cure disease we must know all those laws so that we can find the law that is violated and restore order in the very place where order is required. But this need not mean an extensive or complicated study. Nature is simple. Anyone can understand nature. It is only necessary to study the whole of nature instead of fragments only, as we have done in the past, and we shall find that the whole of nature is far more interesting than the fragments, and much easier to understand. Important principles. To secure the best results from the application of the many methods presented herewith, the following principles should be observed. Live a natural life. The laws of nature, physical and mental, should be observed with the greatest of care in all things and under all circumstances. Gain as clear an understanding as possible of what it means to be natural, then make it a point to be as natural as present conditions will permit. Become fully familiar with those laws of nature that operate in body and in mind, then live, think, and act at all times in harmony with those laws. Violate no natural law, neither in action nor in thought, but aim to apply more and more of the laws of nature in everything you think or do, and you are on the way to the living of a natural life. Think wholesome thoughts. Train the mind to think and entertain only such thoughts as are conducive to health, harmony, and well-being. Think of the good, the true, and the perfect, Think of the larger, the greater, and the better. Think of the worthy, the strong, and the superior. Think of the pure, the beautiful, and the ideal. Give attention to those things that build, that elevate, that make for a richer state of existence, and create only such thoughts as have a rising, growing and expanding tendency. Give health and wholeness to every thought, by thinking health into every thought. Use the power of thought to produce health and direct every mental action to add to the quality and the measure of health. Believe yourself well. If you are perfectly well, continue to believe with all your mind and heart and soul that you always will be well. If you are not perfectly well, believe with the same absolute certainty that you are getting well. Believe that the conditions you desire are being produced for you now. Believe in the possibilities of your own power to produce any condition that you may desire, and make that belief as strong as the limitless strength of your own soul. Feel yourself well. Aim to live and think constantly in the consciousness of health, and enter as far as possible into the deepest feeling of health. Try to feel well at all times, and try to impress that feeling upon your deepest feelings. Permit every feeling of health to sink into a deeper feeling of health until you consciously realize that perfect health that forever abides in the purity, the wholeness, the strength, and the divinity of your own soul. Know that perfect health is always within you, always existing in the depths of your real being. Then try to feel this perfect health by training yourself to feel health at all times, and by permitting that feeling to enter at once those depths of life and consciousness where perpetual health may always be found. What we feel we express, and what we become conscious of in our deeper life we gain possession of in our external life. Imagine yourself well. The imaging faculty should constantly picture before the mind the perfect health that is desired. What we imagine we think, and as we think we become. See yourself well in your own imagination and claim the actual possession of what you have thus seen. Know that when you imagine yourself being in perfect health you cause all the powers of your system to produce perfect health. What you imagine becomes the pattern, and the mental workman always build in the likeness of that pattern that stands out most clearly and most distinctly. Therefore, picture yourself well in your imagination and make that picture strong, positive, clear, and distinct. Be morally clean. Live a clean life both in thought and in action. A clean life means a strong life, and a strong life means health, vigor, endurance, and power. Entertain only such states of mind as are clean, wholesome, and uplifting, and encourage only such actions of mind and body as are directly conducive to higher attainments and greater achievements. Be true to the best that you know, the best that you are and the highest that you aim to realize. Train your ambitions to seek that richer life which is found by acting in harmony with purity, and that greater greatness that he alone can reach who has mastered those finer elements that exist in the world of virtue. Maintain the masterful attitude. In all things and at all times be your own master, think your own thoughts, feel the way you want to feel and act the way you know you should act. Permit no condition in yourself or in your environment to influence your mind or determine your conduct. Know that you can control your own life, your own body and your own mind, and be determined to exercise that control for the complete emancipation of every atom in your being. Master yourself for the attainment of better health, greater strength, and a higher state of physical, mental and spiritual well-being. Know that you can then proceed with all the life and power that is in you, to do what you know you can do. Have faith in all things. To have faith is to enter into conscious touch with the best that exists in that in which we have faith. We can have faith only in that which is worthy of faith, therefore, to have faith in all things is to live in mental contact with the worthy in all things, and when the mind comes in contact with greater work it invariably ascends, and to ascend is to gain freedom. We always become free from the lesser, or that which we do not want, when we rise into the realization of the greater, or that which we do want. Have faith in your own power to produce and maintain perfect health and you place your mind in possession of that very power. That power is already within you. To have faith in that power is to enter into its very life and action and thereby gain, personally, the possession of it for actual use. Have faith in the perfect health that is in you, and have faith in faith, thus you enter into that health, and accordingly all will be well. Depend upon higher power. Recognize at all times the presence of higher power, know that you are surrounded with higher power, that you are filled with higher power, and that this power will work with you in everything you may wish to do. Whatever the condition of your mind or body, know that this higher power can restore all things. Depend upon that power, have faith in that power, enter into the spirit of that power, permit every atom in your being to become alive with the active presence of that power, and complete emancipation will be realized instantly. Live on the heights. All is well on the heights. Go up and live in the perpetual sunshine of truth, in that smile of God which has the power to change everything. Transcend the world of things and dwell constantly upon the mountain tops of supreme spiritual existence. Learn to work with things and to master things, but live always above things. Ascend to the heights and you take mind and body out of weakness and limitations up into the freedom of greater strength and perfect health. You also refine the entire personality, thus making the personal man a more perfect instrument for the expression of the richer life and the greater powers of mind and soul. Live above conditions. Live in the real, the perfect, the true, the sublime. Live with the infinite, in conscious unity with the Supreme, and feel at all times that you are living, walking and working with God. There is immense power in such a realization, a power that can never fail whatever it may be that we wish to have done. Important facts. Before entering upon the study of this vast subject, it will be well to note certain important facts connected with this particular field, facts that clearly indicate the nature and possibilities of the new way to health, and that are admitted by all, even the most exact among scientists, in every line of research, who have given this unique subject their consideration. A few of these facts are as follows. A complete change of mind tends to produce a similar change among the vital conditions of the body, so that when the mental change is uplifting and wholesome, all unhealthful conditions of the body will tend to disappear. All unhealthful states of mind nearly always produce physical disturbances, which, when deeply felt and prolonged, frequently result in actual ailments both functional and organic. The restoration of healthy states of mind tends to produce physical equilibrium and improved health, with added strength and vitality. The functions of the body are aided remarkably by a full and continued state of mental harmony. Most stomachs could digest almost anything if the mind was always in harmony, and the other organs of the body would greatly increase their strength and endurance in the same way. The fear of a certain disease has frequently produced it. Even contagious diseases have been produced through the fear of contagion when that contagion did not exist in the vicinity. People who are absolutely fearless and who are absolutely certain that they will not catch it, may go where there is contagion and not get it, provided there is a full supply of vital energy in their systems at the time. The more faith you have in a medicine, in a physician or in a certain form of treatment, the better the results, while if the patient has no faith or confidence in a treatment, or in the one who administers it, it is almost impossible to get satisfactory results. Emotions that are deep, strong, and exhilarating tend to increase the activity and the energy of the vital organs, thereby promoting the functions of the system. Depressed emotions tend to decrease activity and energy, thereby preventing those organs from doing their work properly, and such a condition is frequently the beginning of disease. Depressing memories tend to decrease functional activity and physical energy, while pleasing memories and exalting or inspiring ideas have the opposite effect. The attitude of expectancy, if deep, strong and continued, tends to produce the very conditions expected. Those conditions are nearly always produced in the mind, and in most instances in the body, frequently to the fullest degree. A nervous, anxious, agitated state of mind will prevent digestion, while states of mental sunshine, good cheer, lightheartedness and pleasing anticipation will promote digestion. Mental states with deep feelings will affect the flow of the juices of the physical system. The flow of any juice, such as saliva, gastric juice, etc., can be increased or decreased at will by entertaining certain deeply felt states of mind. A strong, continued desire for health and life will stimulate all the energies of the system, and usually to a sufficient degree to increase permanently the health and the vigor of the body. When a patient deeply and vitally believes that a certain agent has remedial powers, benefit will be derived from applying that agent, even though it may have no remedial virtue whatever. When a patient absolutely forgets, through some startling event or other cause, that he is ill, The ailment nearly always disappears for a time, and in many instances disappears permanently. When the mind lives in the exhilarating atmosphere of an inspiring ideal, there is a decided increase in the quantity of mental energy and a marked improvement in the quality. And in nearly every instance, a similar increase and improvement in the physical energies follows. A new and uplifting mental atmosphere can take the body so completely out of old or diseased conditions as to cause those conditions to disappear completely. The entire physical system is thus taken up out of its usual state into a state that is new and wholesome, and all the elements of the body change to correspond. To secure something new and something most desirable to live for will renew the life of the body, increase vital energy, stimulate the circulation, bring color to the face, health and charm to the personality, and restored activity to the mind. When the mind enters a deep and perfect calm where it feels the interior serenity and fullness of life, and continues thus for several hours, disturbances of mind or body as well as threatening ailments will disappear. When you believe that a certain thing is harmful, you will be harmed by it mentally in every instance, and in many instances you will be harmed physically, especially in the nervous system. The action of the mind for or against any mode of treatment will assist or retard that treatment as the case may be. When a man works with a definite aim in view, his energy and working capacity will be maintained indefinitely, and hours of actual weariness will be few, but if he works with no aim in view, weariness and exhaustion will come frequently and his working capacity will be decreased from 25 to 50%. A courageous and hopeful state of mind aids remarkably in the overcoming of disease, no matter what the treatment may be. In functional and nervous diseases, thoughts and ideas can be made direct remedies in every case. And in organic diseases, those same agencies can so assist nature as to ensure complete recovery, that is, when nature is given a fair chance in all other respects as well. Nature is constantly at work to keep the well man perfectly well and to make the sick perfectly well. To give nature a fair chance to do this work right is frequently all that is necessary to restore health. But there is nothing in human life that can assist or interfere so much with nature in this respect as the attitude of the mind. Medicine, or any material substance, can produce certain definite effects upon the chemical life of the body, therefore, those substances do have the power to change physical conditions, and accordingly promote cures, when those particular changes are needed for the welfare of the system, but that power is limited, and the change the medicine will produce will depend largely upon the state of the patient's mind at the time. The attitude of the patient's mind at the time the medicine is taken will modify the usual effect of that medicine. That attitude can and frequently does neutralize the expected effect of the medicine, and in many instances the effect desired by the medicine is produced wholly by the mind through expectation and faith. Certain kinds of music, stimulated emotions, promise of reward, a new purpose in life, an agreeable change of work, new opportunities, the appearance of greater possibilities, all of these, and scores of similar factors or experiences, invariably increase the activity of the mind and the vital energies of the body. Through the direct and intelligent use of the mind, any physical ailment may be prevented or permanently cured. Chapter 2. The metaphysical process of cure. There is a belief among many that mental and spiritual healing is produced by some extraordinary or mysterious power, a power that is very difficult to obtain if one does not naturally possess it, but when we understand the power that heals, or the process of cure, we shall find that it is like all other great things, very simple. All healing is the result of mental change, and the various systems of cure that are being employed are simply different methods for producing the same thing, mental change. The mental change, however, must be towards higher arid finer states of thought, or the cure will not follow. And here we find the reason why spiritual and metaphysical systems of thought are usually very successful whenever they attempt the art of healing. The same is true of the various systems of optimistic suggestion. Any suggestion that can produce an elevating change of mind will produce a cure whenever such a change is made, and this is true even though the system of suggestion employed may not be exactly scientific nor possess a complete understanding of the truth. The beneficial results that come from going away for your health are produced through the same law, mental change. New scenes, new associations, new experiences, etc., produce new impressions upon the mind, and these, if deeply enjoyed, will change the mind. When one expects to regain his health by going away, the results are usually better, because the change of mind produced will have health in view, and whatever the mind has in view it always tends to produce. Our thoughts are created in the likeness of those ideas that are uppermost in consciousness, therefore, if health is the predominating purpose, the conditions of health will naturally be instilled into every thought. In some instances, however, a change of scenes does not produce a change of mind, the reason being that the person either lacks impressibility or the new scenes lack impressiveness. The physician who sends his patients away for their health is simply giving them metaphysical treatment without the name. The real object is to get the patient away from his present state of mind, and anything that will accomplish this can produce a cure, but it is possible to get away from your present state of mind without taking a journey to some other country, and it is usually more convenient. Until recently people have depended upon a change of environment to produce a change of mind, but we are now learning to change our minds in any way that we like, regardless of the environments in which we may be placed. We are beginning to become masters over ourselves, and we are learning to so live that external conditions will not control us anymore. We have discovered that we can change our own minds whenever we like, and in any way that we like, also that mental changes produce physical changes, and that we may be completely transformed through the renewal of our minds. The secret of all healing and all changes in body, mind, or personality is thus revealed, and instead of being a mysterious power, is simplicity itself. It is not something far beyond our reach, but a power that we are using more or less daily, simply the power to change the mind. Since any change in the human system can be produced through the proper mental change, our leading purpose in this connection will consequently be to find the best methods for producing such changes, and we shall not have to search far nor wide to find the methods desired. The first principle to learn is, that every mental change must be subconscious, that is, the change must be a change of the heart or no change in life will follow. The thought of the heart is the thought created in the subconscious, and as the subconscious thought is the only thought that produces effects in the system, we understand readily why the change must be subconscious. Every idea or belief that is impressed upon the mind in deep feeling will enter the subconscious. Therefore, every effort to change the mind should be made in deep feeling. The fact that feeling plays such an important part in this respect, proves why impressionable minds respond the most readily to those systems of healing that are based on mental change. It also explains why emotional and religious systems are so very successful in healing whenever they attempt this fine art. Emotional methods, however, do not always produce permanent results, while those results that come from deep metaphysical systems are nearly always permanent. The best system of healing would consequently be a system wherein feeling and intellect were combined, where the emotional was employed to give speedy mental change, and the metaphysical employed to establish those changes permanently. To produce mental change, 3 different factors may be employed: first, new impressions from without; second, new ideas formed through the usual intellectual process; and third, new states of consciousness. Those impressions that come from without will at times produce decided changes in the subconscious mind, though as a rule they simply divert attention so that you will not think about your ills. This is important, however, because so long as you think deeply about your ailments you impress them more deeply upon the system and make matters worse. But when you stop thinking about the trouble, nature will have a chance to restore harmony and health without being interfered with. When attempting to produce new ideas through your own independent thinking, it is well to remember that the most wholesome ideas are always those gained from thinking about the real, the absolute, and the perfect. In other words, metaphysical thinking is the most wholesome, provided it is truly metaphysical and not speculative, and all metaphysical thinking will be true and wholesome that is based upon man's highest understanding of the ideal. To produce a change in consciousness, various methods may be employed. Anything that touches the inner life, such as good music, words of inspiration, higher mental experiences, growth and ascension in soul life and similar mental attitudes, will produce new states of consciousness. If the attention of the mind is centered upon health, while the change of consciousness is taking place, the mental change that follows will always have a tendency to produce better health. A change in consciousness is always the most decided change and should therefore be sought in preference to any of the others. And the reason is because such a change affects directly the real life and action of the mental forces, and these in turn affect the chemical life of the physical system. A chemical change in the system is always required before health can be restored, and it is upon this principle that medicines aim to work, but it has been thoroughly demonstrated that the subconscious forces of the mind can produce chemical changes in the body with far greater rapidity and certainty than any drug taken into the system. And what is important, subconscious changes will be correct changes, while too often medicines produce the wrong chemical change, thus making matters worse. In many instances medicines produce no chemical change in the system whatever, and there is no cure unless the patient has sufficient faith in the medicine. In that case the change is produced by faith, and it is well to remember in this connection that faith can produce any change in the system that is possible under natural law. Of all states of the mind, that state usually described as faith is the deepest, the largest, the most penetrating and the most powerful. Since mental change is the real secret of healing, and since this change must be towards the higher, the finer, and the interior nature of life, the greatest results in healing would naturally come from that mental process that always moves towards the ideal, and that is faith. Faith is that state of mind that always goes up into the higher and more perfect. In fact, it is not faith unless there is mental ascension into or towards the absolute. Faith is a normal, upward mental change, and there is no upward mental change possible without faith, because every mental process that will have the power to produce an upward change must be inspired by faith. For this reason faith can never fail, because faith is an upward mental change, and every upward mental change will unfailingly produce a change for the better in the body. When we have faith in anything we elevate the mind. No matter what it is we have faith in, the mere matter of having faith will elevate the mind. The elevating of the mind causes the renewal of the mind, and when we renew our minds we always change things for the better. Every subconscious action of the mind is a cause, and when the mind is taken up into a new and more perfect state, all these causes will become better and more powerful because they will accordingly produce greater and better effects. When the mind is taken up, the entire system is taken up and is taken out into the freedom of the more perfect. The same process tends to produce right mental states, and such mental states are always conducive to good health. All wholesome impressions formed upon the subconscious will produce wholesome effects upon the system. And all ascending, enlarging, and perfecting states of mind, if deeply felt, produce wholesome impressions upon the subconscious. This proves that faith can never fail, because faith is always ascending, always enlarging, always perfecting, and is always deeply felt. As your faith is, so shall it be unto you is a strong statement, but we know it to be absolutely true when we discover what faith really is, and what it has the power to do. Faith invariably awakens the powers of the inner life, and those powers are higher and stronger than the ones that act in the external personality. Those powers, therefore, can accomplish more, and, what is well to remember, they can accomplish anything because they are unlimited. Failure, however, becomes impossible when unlimited powers are at hand. So, therefore, we realize again that faith can never fail. It has been stated that the ascending change of mind is the secret of all healing, regardless of what the treatment might be, and as there are many ways to bring about such mental changes, our object must naturally be to find the best way, and we find the best way in faith. How to secure faith and how to employ faith will, therefore, become great questions in this study. Faith comes from having faith in all things and at all times. There is nothing that develops so rapidly with use as faith, and the reason is because the attitude of faith is towards the larger, the higher, and the superior at all times. To have faith and to exercise faith is to press on directly to greater things. It is therefore self-accumulative and self-developing, and demonstrates most positively the truth of the statement that to him that hath shall be given. I have faith, and I have faith in faith, are statements that should be employed constantly, and the meaning of those statements should always be deeply felt. Whenever you think of faith or try to exercise faith, turn your mind upon the great within, the boundless, and try to feel your consciousness entering into the seeming void with the assurance that it is all solid rock. If your faith has become well developed, you will know through your own interior perceptions that whatever realm your consciousness may penetrate, it is only the real and the substantial that will be found. You then realize that you can go out anywhere in the vast mental world and always be on solid ground. In the application of the laws of mental and spiritual healing, the value of such a realization is simply unbounded, because those systems of healing depend very largely upon realizing the reality of the real. When disease is present, the system is in confusion. Therefore, if the mind can change into harmony by entering into the understanding of that which is ever real, right, perfect, and absolutely good, the regaining of health must positively follow. While in the consciousness of absolute harmony, we can know neither confusion nor disturbance of any kind, and we cannot be in a condition of ill health while we are in a state where all is well. The great secret of healing, therefore, is to change the mind from a state of confusion, disorder, and false action into a state where the absolutely good is realized to be real, omnipresent and eternal. It is leaving the storm-tossed billows of perverted life and landing safely upon the solid rock of absolute truth. And here we should remember that it matters not where you may be upon this angry sea, faith will guide you safely, surely, and speedily to the harbor of perfect peace. To depend absolutely upon faith is of the highest importance, because faith cannot fail. We may fail, but faith never, and the reason why we fail is because we do not take advantage of the highest wisdom, the superior insight and those mightier powers that may be given to us through faith. In this connection we should fully realize that faith is not blind belief. Belief may be blind, but faith sees everything. Faith is constantly ascending into more and more light, because faith is the mind growing into the light. When you say that you take things on faith, you really mean that a superior insight has informed you that those things should be taken, and that it will be very profitable in some way for you to do so. When you are trying to help yourself or others, this taking of things on faith will prove to be the one perfect path to remarkable results. Faith declares that all things are possible, and after making this statement, faith proceeds to awaken those greater powers in your larger and higher life through which the mind may gain the capacity to do the very things that faith declared could be done. Faith knows that in the great within there is health in abundance, that the real man is always well, and that there is sufficient power at hand to bring this perfect health into positive and tangible evidence in every part of the physical system. Faith not only knows this, but acts according to its convictions. The result is, that what we took on faith we received through faith, and we found it to be very substantial, profoundly real, and absolutely good. What we receive through faith is always good, because faith is the continuous ascension of the mind into the absolutely good. Faith may also be defined as the mind's ascension into absolute truth. Therefore, the more faith we have, the more of truth we shall understand, and it is the understanding of truth that brings complete emancipation. Chapter 3. The curative power of thought. To make practical application of these principles in the cure of human ills, it is the metaphysical process that must be employed, and the reason why will be evident when we consider the true meaning of metaphysics. When the term metaphysics is employed, however, in connection with modern thought or any feature of this study, we do not refer to those vague speculations about mind that class the elements of mind as parts of the unknowable, nor do we refer solely to certain mental forces or qualities that have no direct connection with practical, everyday life. Modern metaphysics, in its largest sense, includes the entire field of mind and consciousness, and deals with the scientific study and practical application of all the forces, elements, powers, states, qualities, and attributes that may exist in the great mental domain. The metaphysical world, broadly speaking, includes the mental world, the moral world, the spiritual world, and all the worlds of consciousness, and metaphysics, as applied in this connection, constitutes the art of applying any force or element embraced in the metaphysical world for the purpose of preventing or removing human ills, be they mental, physical, or moral. Metaphysics in its modern interpretation signifies the scientific use of the highest powers of the mind to the needs of practical life, and among these higher powers, the power of thought occupies the most prominent position. The principle that underlies the power of thought, which is the psychological principle, becomes therefore the fundamental principle in the science and art of healing, and although a number of mental, moral, and spiritual forces may be called into action in this mode of healing, still all those forces must express themselves through the power of thought. The great central action in the metaphysical world is mind in action. How the mind acts determines how other metaphysical forces are to act, and the manner in which the mind is harmonized with those functions, determines how powerful and efficient the action of the mind is to be. The secret, therefore, of the metaphysical process of cure is, first, to place in action such powers of thought as naturally produce health, and second, to increase those powers by combining all other metaphysical forces and elements with the healing power of thought. Any method of healing that does not give first place to the power of thought is not based upon the fundamental principle of metaphysics, nor is such a method in perfect harmony with the laws of nature, because nature has given the greatest power in human life to the power of thought. On the other hand, any system of cure that depends directly on the power of thought, but does not combine with that power every other force and element in the human domain, is likewise incomplete and out of harmony with natural law. To formulate a perfect system of prevention and cure, a system that would apply harmoniously, conjunctively, and effectively, all the health-producing elements in human life, the power of thought should be made the direct channel of application. Everything from the metaphysical side that could increase the power of thought should be employed in conjunction with that power, and everything from the physical side that would make the body more responsive to the curative power of the finer elements of mind and soul should be employed in perfect harmony with the metaphysical process. Such a system, therefore, would not only invite but demand hygienic living, wholesome diet, pure air, reasonable physical exercise, temperate habits, natural remedies, good nursing, and even non-poisonous medicines and common-sense surgery, when these would tend to place the body in the most receptive state possible for the curative power of thought. These external methods, however, should not be looked upon as the powers that heal. The power of thought should occupy that position, not only in the mind of the patient and the physician, but also in the minds of all those who are in any way interested in the case. We should always think of the power of thought as the one principal healing power. We should always give this power the best possible conditions, both physical and metaphysical, through which to work. The power of thought is mighty, but that is no reason why we should place physical obstacles in its way in the form of unhygienic living, impure air, unwholesome food, intemperate habits, and the like, nor is there any reason why we should not remove physical obstructions with physical means when this can be done safely and effectively. To depend wholly on external means, however, is to decrease the power of thought, and in consequence to lessen the power of nature to restore normal conditions, but so long as the power of thought is given the first place in every stage of the curative process, it will increase its efficiency, even though many external methods be employed at the same time. The principle is to depend upon the power of thought, and make that power as strong and effective as possible, but while this power is being applied, any external method that can make the body more responsive to thought, or that can assist the natural healing process, is not only permissible but demanded. There is no warfare between the physical and the metaphysical. The two are not antagonistic. On the contrary, they are necessary to each other, but the physical is the servant and the metaphysical the master. Therefore, in a complete therapeutic system the metaphysical should be looked upon as the physician, while the physical should be expected to assist in every manner possible. To place the metaphysical first is to act in perfect harmony with nature, because every action in the body originates in the mind, and every function in the body is governed by the mind. The voluntary actions of the body are produced by the conscious side of the mind, and the involuntary actions are produced by the subconscious. Even what is called the efforts of nature to restore normal conditions, is a process that is governed completely by the subconscious side of the mind. It is the subconscious that directs the vital force of the system in healing the wound or in replacing healthy tissue where disease has been conquered. It is the subconscious that restores flesh to the emaciated body when the fever has been removed, and it is the subconscious that gradually restores energy, strength, and vigor during the period of convalescence. It is the subconscious that governs all those processes in the human system that we speak of as nature, and as the subconscious can be assisted, modified, changed, or governed by the power of conscious thought, we realize what a power there is in the power of thought when intelligently employed. Every dormant force found in the body responds to the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind responds to the power of thought. Therefore, the power of thought is necessarily the great central power, both in the physical and the metaphysical domains of man, and for this reason it becomes the most important factor in that system of healing that aims to be true to nature, true to the laws of life and true to the entire being of man. To exercise the power of thought in the cure of any disease, physical, mental or moral, the first essential is to train the entire system to depend absolutely upon the power of thought for health, wholeness, and strength. This step will not only increase the health-producing powers of thought, but will also make every part of the body more responsive to the curative forces of mind and soul. When the body responds readily to those finer forces, any threatening ill can be nipped in the bud almost instantaneously by simply using the power of thought according to the laws of applied metaphysics. To train the physical system to depend upon higher power for perfect health and respond to that power whenever there is a desire to produce health or increase the life of health, constant attention should be given to that interior or higher relationship that exists between the physical and the metaphysical. We should think a great deal about how the mind affects the body and how mental action both originates and governs physical action. We should realize the fact that mental states have a tendency to work themselves out into physical conditions, and that any positive mental state can remove a corresponding opposite physical condition. We should also realize that all the vital forces of the human system, even the chemical forces, not only can be affected, but constantly are being affected, modified and changed by the force of thought, mind, and soul. The first step in the regaining of health through the metaphysical process, is not to learn how to exercise some new mental power, but to learn how to make common, everyday thinking wholesome. In fact, so closely is the mind related to the body that if everyday thinking was wholesome, and always wholesome, the body would enjoy perfect health all through life. The power of thought may be employed either for or against the welfare of the human system, and which it is to be, depends upon whether the thinking is wholesome or not. To discriminate between thinking that is wholesome and that which is not, a clear understanding of general metaphysics becomes necessary, though the line that separates the two modes of thought may be readily found by anyone. Wholesome thinking is the result of any mental action that is constructive in its tendency, and that has the ideal in view, while any mental action that is not naturally constructive and that moves away from the ideal is always unwholesome and detrimental. When the actions of the mind move towards the ideal, everything in the human system has a tendency to move out of present conditions, and the natural way to freedom is out of the lesser and the adverse out into the larger, the better, and the ideal. To train the action of the mind to move towards the ideal, the first essential is to impress the ideal upon every mental state and every element of consciousness. The ideal of anything is that something that contains the very thing that is wanted. Therefore, to move towards the ideal is to enter into that which is wanted. To move towards the ideal is to make real the ideal, to move towards the light is to gain more and more light, and the mind does move towards, and into, that which is constantly being impressed upon thought and consciousness. To impress the ideal upon the mind, the existence of the ideal should be constantly in the mind, that is, think and affirm that you have in the ideal what you want in the real. You thus incorporate the ideal in every form. You make all your thinking ideal, and ideal thinking is wholesome thinking. Such thinking will produce perfect mental health, and when the mind is perfectly well, the body will also be perfectly well. Think with depth and feeling that you are well, and you give your thought the power to make you well. Every thought you think has an interior power. This interior power is exactly like the thought itself as to nature and quality, and it will express that nature and quality in the body. This is one of the supreme facts in metaphysics. What you give to your thought you give to your body, and what you think into your thought you work into your body. When you always think that you are well, you think health into every thought, and the interior power of every thought will express health in the body. There can, therefore, be no disease in your body while all your thinking is giving health to your body, because the entire system will be so thoroughly filled with the life and the power of health that no adverse condition can possibly gain a foothold. The average mind, however, is not in the habit of thinking health, and a large portion of the thought produced in the average mind is not wholesome, the reason being that no systematic effort has been made to apply the mind directly in promoting the welfare of the human system, but through the affirmation of the ideal, wholesome thinking will become a habit, and the power of every thought will promote the realization of the ideal. The statement "I am well" should be used constantly in the deepest and most sincere attitude of realization in order to secure a basis for healthful thinking. To this statement should be added as many constructive statements as may be necessary to express the true, the perfect, and the ideal in every part of human life. The principle is, to think constantly that you are well and never permit yourself to think anything to the contrary. You will thus give the power of thought the power to produce health, and such thought will permeate every part of your body with the very life of health. By giving expression to the idea of health in every mental state, and in every action of consciousness and feeling, you add health-producing power to the power of thought. Your wholesome thinking is strengthened from every source, and everything you do will tend to make your system more and more wholesome. To add health-producing power to the power of thought, such mental states as anger, worry, depression and doubt, should be removed, and such states as faith, love, peace, joy and harmony established in their places. Eliminate all negative thinking, that is, never think of that which is adverse, or that which you do not wish to become a part of your life. Think of only those greater and better things that you want, and continue in the positive faith that you will get them. Live on the sunny side, count everything joy, believe most thoroughly that all things are working for greater and greater good for you, and be determined to prove it in greater and greater measure. Chapter 4. The Inner Force of Thought. There are certain forms of mental action that exercise a direct power upon the human personality, while there are other forms of mental action that do not exercise that power. How to tell the difference between the two is a great problem, and a most important problem, because to find the solution is to find the real secret of practical results in the metaphysical field. Those who have tried to secure results through the application of right thinking have found that at times results came almost instantaneously, while at other times it seemed almost impossible to accomplish anything, even though the same methods were employed to the letter. Then there are many who never secure any results whatever, though they apply the same principle, as those who are exceptionally successful, and the reason why seems a mystery. The mystery disappears, however, when we learn that thought does not become power unless the inner force of thought is brought into action. Two persons may with the same enthusiasm and perseverance affirm "I am well," one finds no change, while the other begins to mend at once, and is soon restored to perfect health. The same idea and the same method was employed in each case, but only in the one did thought become power. In like manner two persons of equal intelligence may live according to the same system of metaphysics or idealism. The one gains ground every day, while the other finds conditions no better than he did while employing his previous helter-skelter modes of thought. It is evident, therefore, that it is not the thought itself that produces results, but some power that is back of or within thought. There is no inner force in all mental action. This force is hidden, so to speak, in every thought, but it is not aroused in every thought. When it is aroused, the thought becomes alive with power and produces results according to its nature. When you think of health, and arouse the inner force of every thought, you will give every thought the power to produce health. In consequence, those thoughts will produce health in your system just as surely as fire produces warmth. When you think of peace and feel the action of this same inner force, the very thought you think will become a power for peace. You can in this manner restore perfect peace and harmony to your system in a few seconds, no matter how agitated or disturbed you may be. The inner force of the thought, when awakened, will express and produce the exact nature of the thought, and therefore, whatever you may wish your thought to produce, if you think the right thought and think living thought, the results will come as expected. To think the right thought is simple. All that is necessary for general purposes is to affirm that you are what you wish to realize and express through body, mind, and personality, and to form in the mind as clear a mental picture as possible of those conditions you desire to produce in yourself. If you wish to produce health, affirm mentally, "I am well, I am strong and well, I am perfectly whole and sound through and through," absolute health fills and thrills every atom in my being, and statements of a similar nature. Think these thoughts over and over again with deep conviction until your mind is actually full of them, and at the same time picture mentally the condition of health in every part of your system. The other essential is to think living thought, and here is the problem, the chief stumbling block of those who have failed to secure the desired results through the metaphysical process. No matter how much you may affirm this statement or that, or how well you may picture certain conditions in your mind, you will have no results unless your thought is alive. Your thought will have no power to produce the desired effect in your body unless you awaken the inner force of that thought. There are some minds that are naturally conscious of this inner force, or what may be called the finer force, the spirit or the soul of thought, and, therefore, they take naturally to metaphysics and idealism, securing good results from the beginning. Others, however, have to acquire this finer consciousness before there is any power in their thought, but this is not difficult. Those who have secured results may think that their understanding of the principles of right thought is so much better than that of those who fail, but this is not necessarily true. Many of those who succeed in metaphysics have very little understanding of the principles involved, while not a few of those who understand metaphysics as perfectly as they do mathematics, secure no results, the reason being that the former naturally express this inner force through every thought, while the latter do not. The understanding of the metaphysical principle is necessary to the best results. No one can accomplish very much without this understanding, but the awakening of the inner force of thought is just as important. Therefore, every person, no matter how well he has succeeded thus far, should learn more fully how to awaken and direct that inner force that is latent in all human thought. We may depend upon natural endowments up to a certain point, but to go further we must take conscious control of our powers, and develop them as required for the greater purpose in view. What we use consciously, intelligently, and according to known law, always produces far greater results than what we use naturally while in ignorance of the law. Those who depend upon their own determined efforts instead of upon the gifts of nature always climb the highest in the scale. The same is true in the field of practical metaphysics. To awaken the inner force of thought, give spirit to all your thought, that is, give depth of life and feeling to your thought, and give what may be termed the action of soul to every mental action. This force is not forceful and is not purely mental, but contains an element that is much finer and stronger than the usual energies of mind. In fact, this inner force has tremendous power when deeply realized and properly concentrated. When fully awakened, there is no disease in the body that this force cannot remove, and there is no adverse condition anywhere in the human system that it cannot make right. When failures occur through the use of the metaphysical process, the cause may be found in the fact that this inner force is not alive in the thoughts we think, and without the living action of this inner force the mind has practically no power over the body, but when this inner force is alive in every mental action, the power of the mind over the body becomes extraordinary. This force is entirely distinct from intellectual action or ordinary feeling or will. It is a force by itself and fills every thought, as we would say the soul fills the body. To awaken this force, or rather place it in action in every thought, deep conscious feeling is necessary, and a deep, strong, positive will is required to direct it. But both feeling and will must be trained to sound the depths of the human system, as mere superficial action, however earnest or determined, will not avail. The object must be to train consciousness to actually grasp this finer element in thought, and as consciousness goes deeper and deeper into the interior world of thought, this finer force comes forth with more and more power until every thought you think is a power. Then use wisdom in your thinking and the results that you will henceforth secure will be remarkable indeed. When every thought you think has the power to produce a definite effect upon your body, your character, or your mentality, you can afford to think only thoughts that are wholesome and true, and accordingly will find it necessary to adopt a complete system of scientific and constructive thinking for everyday use. Aim to live, not on the surface of your mind, but in the very spirit of your mind. Do not think mechanically, but with feeling, spirit, and soul, and whenever you proceed to use the power of thought in producing definite results in your system, such as health, life, harmony, peace, and purity, enter into the finer, deeper, stronger life of your thought. Try to feel the inner force of thought when you think. You will soon succeed in doing this almost at any time, and when you do, your thought will become actual power. When this inner force is given action and made alive in every thought, the complete mastery of every physical condition becomes possible. You can then remove any adverse conditions from your system at once because you have liberated that force of thought that is so deep that it undermines everything that is not in harmony with the true order of natural law. This finer force, when placed in action in your system, will remove the wrong, consume it as with fire, and will give life and power to every function and faculty you may possess. When your thinking is right, the inner force of your thought will give you the power to do whatever you think of doing. Therefore, when you adopt a complete system of scientific and constructive thinking and awaken the inner force of your thought, your life will be in your own hands and you will have the power to produce and build up any desirable condition of body, mind, or personality that you may desire. Special rules to apply the principles and methods of this work, in the most successful manner, to the attainment of health. The following rules should be observed as closely as possible. Continue in a calm, harmonious, well-poised frame of mind at all times and under all circumstances, and know that such a frame of mind will cause your system to increase its vital energy, and to retain all that energy. Be determined to secure and maintain perfect health. Concentrate your whole attention upon the realization of perfect health, and firmly believe that you will gain ground steadily. Train yourself to feel that there is life, health, and wholeness in abundance in every atom of your system, and make this feeling so deep and so realistic that you can actually feel that life and health coming forth into every part of your body. Learn to think health. Give every thought the idea of health, and impress your most perfect conception of health upon every thought or mental state that you entertain. Think of yourself constantly as perfectly well. Think of yourself as strong, and think of yourself as gaining in health and strength constantly. See yourself well in your own imagination. Whenever you think of yourself, see yourself with the mind's eye as being perfectly well and strong. Make that ideal picture of yourself as plain and distinct as you can, and dwell upon it with expectant joy many times every day. Whenever you are reminded of pain, illness, or disorder, turn your attention positively upon the highest and best thought of health, life, and harmony that you can form in your mind. Give deep and sincere feeling to this effort, and know that the moment you produce a change for the better in your mind, you will realize a change for the better in your body. Continue in a happy frame of mind. Be always cheerful, and feel it with your whole heart. Live on the sunny side of your life. Think of the bright side of everything. Look for the bright side of everything, and expect to find more and more of this brighter side every day. Train your heart to sing and your soul to rejoice at all times, and know that the more real happiness you feel, the more health and vigor you will have in mind, body, and personality. Live in the upper story of the mind. Realize that you are above mind and body, that you have full control of mind and body, and that you express your whole life and power through every part of mind and body. Think of yourself as living in an upper, finer atmosphere of thought and life, where freedom is complete, where power is unbounded, and where all is always well. Look for health, life, and strength in everybody. When you see illness anywhere, think the more deeply of the perfect health that is in the real life of everybody, and expect that perfect health to express itself in an ever-increasing measure. Make it a practice to take note of and to emphasize the good and the wholesome that you find in everybody you meet, and do not hesitate to speak of these better things at every available opportunity. Live mentally in a wholesome atmosphere. Keep your mind in peace and order, absolutely free from strife or discord of any kind. Fill your mind completely with thoughts of the good, the true, the strong, the perfect, the beautiful, and the ideal, and take great delight in dwelling upon those thoughts as frequently as you can find the time. Believe thoroughly in the methods you employ to get health and strength. Know within yourself that those methods can produce the results you desire. Have unbounded faith in yourself, in the thoughts of health you think, and in everything that you can do to produce health. Have unbounded faith in the good that is in you, and all about you, and in that higher power in which you live, and move, and have your being. When things do not seem to change for the better as you should wish, know that the wrong shall surely pass away, while the good shall increase perpetually. Then set your will to your purpose. Know that you can turn the tide in your favor. Be strong and persistent. Proceed to apply everything of worth that you know. Make the best use of everything of worth that is in you. Think, act and work in that sublime realization that makes you feel that you are filled and surrounded with the unbounded power of the infinite, and proceed in the consciousness of the great truth that all things are possible to him who lives and works in such a power. Chapter 5. Renew your mind and be well. That the mind exercises great power over the body, that every mental state is a cause, producing its corresponding effect upon the moral, the mental, and the physical conditions of the individual, and that every thought is a force that can change, transform, or at least modify almost anything in the human system. These are facts that are no longer disputed. The metaphysical side of man is now receiving its due share of attention, and the facts just stated are therefore being firmly established among all who discern them. Knowing the fact, therefore, that mind and thought have such great power over the human system, and that the whole of life depends for its qualities and conditions upon the nature of one's thought, we find ourselves face to face with a principle of stupendous proportions, and we cannot proceed very far in our study of this principle before we discover that a change of thought means a change of practically everything, and therefore we realize that to make the proper change of thought is so important that nothing in life could be more important. Metaphysical students in general understand that the renewal of mind means a renewal of everything in life, but to change the thought at will, and to bring about those mental changes that we desire, is an art that the majority have not mastered, the reason being that it is much easier to believe than to act, though it is a fact that we should remember well in this connection that every possibility can be worked out and made actual in the life of anyone. When we consider the subject of mental change and the renewal of mind, we find that there are two ways through which this may be brought about. We may change our thought through impressions received from without, or through perceptions developed from within. We may renew the mind by living among new scenes and environments, or we may bring about the same result by directing our mind to live in a new field of consciousness, though we shall find that where thousands change their thoughts by the former plan, only a few do so by the latter. That we can change and renew mind without changing external environments is a fact that is well known, but it has never been looked upon as of real importance. We shall soon learn, however, that it is of the greatest importance, and we shall also find that no one can attain complete emancipation, or realize steady growth of mind and soul until he can change his thought from within according to his desires. Physicians send their patients away because they know a change will do them good, but what does the change consist of, and why does it prove beneficial? Simply this, that different people are met, strange houses and landscapes constantly appear, and what is heard or seen differs more or less from what was experienced in the former locality. The new place has no magical power of healing, it does not give the system any new elements, and has no special virtue along any line. With a few exceptions, one place is usually as good as another. We find in each place the same earth, the same atmosphere, and the same natural forces. A few slight modifications may exist, but where there are some conditions superior in the new place, there are other conditions that are inferior. When we go to some new place to secure a change, we find many of the people in that new place planning to go elsewhere, that they may have a change. Consequently, it is not the place that is beneficial, but the change, and the change is beneficial because you get new impressions upon your mind. You get something different to think about, and your thought is more or less renewed. A change of thought, according to well-known metaphysical laws, produces a change in the system. Old and burdensome conditions pass away through the coming of the new, and you feel a relief. That is why the change is beneficial. To go away for your health is to take a course of metaphysical treatment from the visible forms of nature, and the results will depend very much upon how favorable an impression those forms make upon your mind. What you see, hear, or experience is different, and produces different impressions upon your mind. From these different impressions come different thoughts, different emotions, and different mental states. There is a change of mind and thought, which is invariably followed by a change in the physical system. We all know that new thought produces new life, and that new impressions upon mind produce new thought. These new impressions may not all be wholesome, but they are always different, and the old is thereby modified to some extent. Should you go away and not be well impressed with the new scenes, you will receive no benefit whatever. You do not respond to the new impressions, consequently there is no change of thought. As a man thinketh, so is he, therefore, so long as you think the way you did, you will feel the way you did. You are the same as before, physically and mentally, you are no different, and in consequence no better. We can easily establish the fact without multiplying arguments or illustrations, that the benefit received from a change of scenes or places comes because there is a change of thought, and we must naturally conclude, therefore, that if you can change your thought without going away, you can have just as good results by staying at home. This, however, is an art that few have mastered, but it is an art that all must master if perfect health is to be enjoyed all through life. The majority cannot change their own minds. They require new impressions from without to accomplish this feat. They are dependent upon the five senses and what comes through the five senses, and think, not as they wish to think, but according to the impressions they receive from without, coming into mind through the sense channels. It is not to be inferred, however, that it is wrong to receive new impressions from without, or that it is detrimental to our best welfare to absorb the life and the impressions from new scenes, but it is a fact we should well remember that no man can be master of himself who cannot change his thought without first being placed in a change of scenes. We cannot obtain emancipation or realize our highest ideals so long as we are dependent upon things for a change of thought. We must, therefore, proceed to make this change ourselves, independently, regardless of surrounding circumstances or the world in which we live. If you are compelled to go away to secure a change of mind or feeling, you have practically no control over your own thinking. You think according to what you see or hear, or according to the sensations you receive from physical or mental experiences. The thought of thousands is governed to a great extent by what enters the stomach. What you take into the system produces a certain sensation. This sensation produces an impression upon the mind, as all sensations do, and this impression originates ideas, thoughts, and mental states as all impressions do. If these ideas and thoughts are helpful, harmonious, and constructive in their nature, you have been benefited. Otherwise, what was taken into the system will prove detrimental. It is a well-known fact that thousands of failures have been traced directly to mental disturbances produced by food that was indigestible, and it is also a well-known fact that thousands of misdeeds, even some of the most serious, can be traced to food that was not properly prepared. The culinary art, therefore, is not to be ignored. It holds a position, even in connection with metaphysical and psychological studies, that is among the first. The thought of other thousands is governed by what they read in the daily press, most of which is a detailed account of deeds of darkness. Others form their ideas from their surroundings, what they see or hear at their work, or what they receive from the influence of home and companionship. Still others think what they are told to think by religious authority, and never change until told to do so by that same authority. Illustrations and details could be multiplied indefinitely, but the fact we wish to emphasize is simply this, that the average person does not change his own thought by exercising his own power of independent and original thought. He thinks according to impressions that act upon his mind, and those impressions come from what he sees or hears or comes in contact with in the external world. He is therefore in bondage to things because he is compelled to think according to the impressions that things make upon his mind. A change among the things that surround him produces a change in his thought, and he feels differently. If the change is wholesome, he feels better, and may even be cured of serious ills in this way alone, but if the new scenes do not produce good impressions upon his mind, he may, and often does, become sick both in mind and body. We realize, therefore, the enormous importance of the subject, and no further details are required to prove that it is entitled to one of the first places in this great study. That there can be no improvement in body, mind, intellect, ability, or character until there is a certain change of thought is now a well-established fact, and since every new impression that comes upon the mind will, to a degree, change the thought, the art of forming only those impressions upon the mind that are favorable becomes one of the greatest of arts. The mastery of this art means absolute control of one's own thinking, which involves the power to produce any impression desired upon mind, regardless of scenes, sounds or environments, and also the power to prevent anything from the without, coming through the senses, from producing any impression upon our minds if we do not desire such impressions. The object we have in view is the change of thought and the renewal of mind, not through a change in outer things, but through a change of interior perception. It is well to receive all kinds of good impressions from without, and everybody should mingle as much as possible among different people and environments that are wholesome, but no one should be dependent upon new scenes for a change of thought, or permit any change of thought from any cause whatever, unless that change is individually desired. If we wish to change our thought along right lines, and improve our thought constantly along all lines, we must be able to form upon mind new impressions and the desired impressions whenever we wish, regardless of where we may be at the time. Every person should be able to entirely renew all lines of thought or sensation without being compelled to change locality or association. He should be able to change his thought, not by going to a different place in the without, but by going to a different field of consciousness in the within. When he can do this, he can think his own thought, and change his own thought just as he likes, whenever he likes. He will be mentally free, and no other freedom can come until we have secured mental freedom. And here we should remember that no one is mentally free until he can think at will whatever he wants to think, regardless of what he may read, hear, see, or experience. There are scores of conditions of bondage in the world at present, and thousands are at work seeking the way of emancipation from each particular condition, but there is no real, permanent freedom from anything until we attain mental freedom. When mental freedom comes, all kinds of bondage will disappear as if they never existed, and the first step to mental freedom is to be able to think your own thought, change your own thought, renew your mind, and form your own ideas, regardless of circumstances, persons, or things. Not that we are to become oblivious to the objective, or become utterly indifferent to the world about us. On the contrary, when we attain mental freedom we shall so much the better see all things, hear all things, and be aware of all things, but we will form our own conclusions. We will change when we like, and remain unchanged when we like. This great attainment is possible to all, and the art is acquired by training the mind to form new impressions through new experiences gained in consciousness. In other words, employ your interior perception in trying to discern the nature of new and inner states. Instead of looking for new places and new scenes in the without, whenever you feel the need of a change, look for new sensations and experiences in your own consciousness. What exists in the within is just as real as that which exists in the without, and it is of more importance to understand. Therefore, by training the mind to take journeys into the beautiful worlds within, you are not only acquiring the art of forming new mental impressions within, you are also enlarging mind and consciousness. You are gaining valuable information about many things that material man knows nothing of, and you are preparing the way for real freedom and much higher development. The real purpose, however, of these journeys to the within, should be the change of thought, and for that reason should be taken whenever the need of mental change is felt. To begin, realize that the larger life within is the fullness of life, and cannot in any way lack the real essentials of life. Realize that the worlds within are ideal worlds, and are therefore not imperfect in any way. Realize that the new inner states of consciousness that you may discern, contain the unlimited possibilities of absolute existence, and are therefore neither incomplete nor imperfect in any way whatever. Then realize that those inner places are not separated from you, but are necessary parts of your whole being, and also that the I Am, the real you, is at the very center of this whole being, and lastly, realize that whenever you turn your attention upon the potential, the within, the ideal, you are looking upon something that contains within itself all the elements of absolute perfection. To illustrate, when you feel discord, you know that you can obtain peace just as soon as you change your thought to a state of harmony. You know that the very moment an impression of perfect harmony establishes itself in mind, harmony will begin to express itself through your whole system. But how is this impression of harmony to be secured from within? You can secure it from without by listening to soft and gentle music, or by having someone you love minister to your heart and soul, but these good angels are not always at hand. We are usually dependent upon our own efforts, therefore if thought can be changed from a state of confusion to a state of perfect peace, through mental impressions gained from the silent within, we have discovered a great secret. To bring this about, we look to the silent within instead of the help of persons and things, and by looking upon the silent within with the eye of the mind, we are impressed with the thought of peace. When you look upon a quiet scene in nature through physical sight and become absorbed in that scene, you soon become perfectly still in mind and body. The reason why has been explained above. In like manner, when you look upon the silent within through the mental eye, you soon become perfectly still, in the same way exercising the same law. Likewise, when you look upon any ideal and become deeply impressed with it, an image of that ideal will form upon the mind, and you will begin to think thoughts just like that ideal or perfect image. It is therefore an easy matter to create thought at will that can give peace, life, joy, health, strength. In brief, almost anything you see in the within will impress itself upon your mind, and you will think thoughts that correspond exactly with that impression, thereby producing mental states to be followed by physical conditions that are similar in every respect to the nature of that which you originally saw in the within. But the power to change your own thought by impressions received from the ideal, or the within, is, aside from this, of exceptional value other ways. It is this power that gives us the secret of original thought, and it is original thought that makes man great in mind, character, and soul. It is the original thinker who becomes the mental and spiritual giant, and it is from original thought that everything proceeds that has value and worth in the promotion of human growth and welfare. The power to change your own thought in this manner also produces mental freedom, and with mental freedom comes all the necessary states and avenues of consciousness through which we may gain whatever the heart may wish for. When we are mentally free, then it is that we can fully employ the wonderful powers that are within us, but until we attain that freedom we are more or less hampered. Therefore, to be able to change your own thought, and to renew your own mind at any time through impressions gained from the ideal within, means far more than tongue can ever tell. Chapter 6. How the mind can produce health. Every force and element in mind has a tendency to act in a certain way, to move in a certain direction, and to produce certain results. Therefore, when we learn to control the tendencies of the mind, we may determine what actions and results are to be. We may also determine whether we are to go forward or backward, towards health or disease, towards weakness or strength, towards bondage or emancipation, towards inferiority or superiority. When we begin to move in a certain direction, it is not always an easy matter to stop that action, therefore we should direct our movements in the right direction before we begin, and to determine in what direction we desire to move, we must train the mind to produce such tendencies as will tend to cause all actions to move in the direction we desire to go. When any mental tendency is fully established, the actions of the mind will move naturally and unconsciously in that direction, and will carry out those desires that may be realized through that particular movement. The creative forces of mind obey and follow those tendencies, and always go with those tendencies that have the greatest intensity and the most perfect concentration. Therefore, when the tendencies you desire are made strong, and are properly concentrated upon the object you have in view, all the forces of your system will work with those tendencies, thereby making it almost certain that the object in view will be realized. Whenever you begin to think that you should desire a certain thing, you proceed to form a tendency to create, not only a strong desire in that direction, but also a movement of the mind that will tend to produce the thing desired. At first, this desire can be controlled, but if the tendency continues, the desire may become so strong that it cannot be controlled. We realize, therefore, how important it is to place in action only such desires as we may want, because when a desire gets beyond our control we may be compelled to follow that desire and do many things that we did not in the first place intend. All mental tendencies are born of desires, and it is possible to create any line of desire that we may wish to develop and realize. This being true, we can form any mental tendency that we may think favorable to the purpose we have in view. Every impression that is formed in the mind has a tendency to multiply itself, because every impression is energy centralized, and creative desire always appears with such centralizations. When the tendency of the impression to reproduce itself is permitted, that impression, however tiny or insignificant at first, may eventually become a powerful mental state so strong that all other states of mind must obey, and as this state of mind is, so will be the man himself. Some people are exact externalizations of a single predominating mental state, while others have formed their personalities and characteristics from a group of mental states, but since every mental state originated in some tiny impression, and every impression may be multiplied and developed by desire, we understand what may become of us when we permit every impression to increase and follow its inherent tendency. Every large object, physical or metaphysical, has a tendency to draw all smaller objects into its own path, and also to make all things in its atmosphere like itself. This, however, may be more or less modified by counteracting tendencies, which are usually at hand in considerable numbers. In the metaphysical world, the understanding of this law is very important, both in the building of character and in the development of talents. If you have a good character, it means that the strongest tendencies of mind are wholesome, elevating and righteous in nature, while if your character is weak, it means that you have no one elevating tendency strong enough to predominate in the world of conduct. A perverted character is always the result of the ascending tendencies either being absent or too insignificant to exercise any influence, and ascending tendencies are always the results of thoughts, ideas, or impressions that are wholesome and constructive, while descending tendencies come from opposite causes. The weakest as well as the most perverted character may at times perform some noble act, and the finest character may at times do something that is beneath his true worth, but the explanation is simple. In the first case, the weak ascending tendencies were permitted to act without being interfered with by the predominating descending tendencies, while in the second case, the predominating ascending tendencies were suspended for the time being, and descending tendencies were temporarily created, due possibly to impressions formed upon the mind through some strong or overpowering temptation. Such temptations, however, can never exercise their power over the conduct of any individual who naturally has a strong character, provided the ascending tendencies of his mind are always in positive action. The strongest tendencies, however, may at times become negative, and it is at such times that the good man falls and the weak man responds favorably to wholesome influences from without. In this connection we realize the great importance of having such full control over mind and thought that we can always desire what we want to desire, and always cause our wholesome and ascending tendencies to continue in a constant and positive action. When you think more of the external things of life than of that which is within, you create in consciousness a tendency to dwell on the surface. The result is, you become more or less superficial, and may finally become inferior to what you were in all respects. On the other hand, by thinking a great deal of those things that are lofty and profound, you create in consciousness a tendency to penetrate the deep things of life. The result is that you become conscious of a larger world of thought. You increase your mental capacity, improve decidedly the quality of your mind, and may at times make valuable discoveries. When questionable pictures and suggestions are placed before minds that are not well established in purity, a strong tendency to produce uncontrollable desires may be created in those minds, and if those tendencies are continued and nourished, such desires may become too strong to be controlled, the victims may thus be carried away by them, even at the risk of name and reputation, or life. The mind that thinks a great deal about spotless virtue, and keeps the idea of virtue constantly before it, will soon create such a strong tendency to virtue that all desires and feelings will actually become virtuous. For such a person it will be simplicity itself to continue in virtue and in perfect self-control. When all the elements of your being are actually producing purity, virtue, and self-control, you do not have to produce those things, and you do not have to resist or fight desires that may lead in opposite directions, because all your desires have begun to act in harmony with that tendency that is producing spotless virtue in your system. Your energies, therefore, do not create abnormal desires anymore, but have instead been trained to create physical force, vital force, energy, personal power, and mental brilliancy. When the tendency of the mind is towards real virtue, all the creative energies of the system will become constructive, and will accordingly build up mind, body, and personality. The man who is ambitious is daily training all the tendencies of his mind to act upon those faculties that are required to carry out his plans, and as it is the nature of the building forces of the mind to follow the strongest tendencies, those faculties will naturally be developed and perfected to a degree where they can readily carry out the desired ambition. Whenever you positively resolve to accomplish certain things, you will succeed in proportion to your ability, a fact which is easily understood when we know how the tendencies of the mind always act in this connection, but a positive resolution is not a mere spurt. A resolve, to be genuine, must be constant and strong, and must never waver in the strength of its power. The reason why such a resolve must always win, is found in the fact that such a resolve leads to a powerful mental tendency, and a tendency of this kind will draw all the powers and talents of the mind into the line of its action, so that everything that is in use will work for the one thing we are resolved to accomplish or achieve. When we think a great deal about the refined side of life, we create tendencies that will cause all the forces within us to recreate everything in our systems according to a more refined pattern. Accordingly, it will soon be second nature for us to become more refined, and all those things that have been crude or undeveloped in our nature will gradually disappear. In the average mind we find the belief that the body naturally decays and grows old, and as this belief is subconscious in nearly everybody, there is in such minds a tendency to produce that very condition of decay. For this reason, that tendency is actually producing decay and old age contrary to the laws of nature, where there would be no such conditions of decay were that tendency absent. Nature renews the physical body every few months, and there is no natural process of decay in the system of any body. If the physical system decays, that process of decay has been created through the violation of mental or physical laws, and therefore can be removed when that violation is corrected. If there is a process in your system that is making you look older every year, that process is a false one. It was not placed there by nature. You have produced it yourself by perpetuating that tendency towards old age that we have inherited from mistaken race belief. The tendency to become weaker in body and mind as the years go by is also a false one which we have inherited and perpetuated through our own belief in the reality of such inheritance, but it is just as easy to create a tendency to become stronger and more intelligent the longer we live. We are therefore not in bondage to what we have inherited, because we can change everything and bring everything in ourselves into harmony with natural law. We can also create the tendency to improve personal appearance and personality the longer we remain upon earth, because the tendency to lose the elements and vigor of youth is unnatural, it is a false tendency with which we have been born, and to which we have added life and power. We are born with all these false tendencies, and then we make them stronger through our own tendency to follow the grooves in which we have been placed by unnatural heredity, but, as previously stated, every undesirable inheritance can be removed. Every impression formed in the mind is a seed that will produce some tendency, therefore we should not only remove those impressions that we do not wish to cultivate, but should also prevent inferior and undesired impressions from forming in the mind in the first place. When we see people growing old, or, rather, making themselves older, every year, we are impressed by the aging process. We think that process is natural, and therefore permit it to be impressed upon our minds. That impression contains the tendency to produce the same process in us, and as it usually receives our permission to have its way, we also begin to grow older every year, regardless of the fact that nature gives us a new body every few months. In this manner we cause the aging process to become stronger and stronger in us the more we see it in others, until we soon discover that we also are creating for ourselves older bodies. The new bodies that nature gives us this year we change through this false process, so that those bodies look a year older than the bodies we received from nature a year ago. Thus the habit continues, and we consider the whole thing natural, when it is nothing else but the most ignorant violation of natural law. We think certain things natural and inevitable because we see them everywhere about us, but when we understand nature we discover that we make all the undesirable things in life ourselves, simply because we do not understand the real purpose and the greater possibilities of nature. To change all these things, we must begin to transform all the tendencies of the mind so that every tendency will move the way we want it to move, and produce those conditions in mind and body that we desire. In the attainment of health and strength, this same law can be applied with decided success. When we think a great deal about health, desire persistently to realize perfect health, and positively expect to gain and maintain perfect health, we create strong mental tendencies that have the power to produce such health, and as all the forces of the system always work with the strongest tendencies, we shall thereby cause all the forces within us, physical and mental, to produce better health, and to build up every part of mind, body, and personality. By creating strong mental tendencies towards health and by increasing the force and determination of those tendencies every day, you train the mind to produce health, and you cause the health-producing tendencies in your system to become so strong that they will completely govern the condition of your system, that is, they have the power to maintain healthful and wholesome conditions under all sorts of circumstances, and accordingly your physical system will become practically immune from all disease. You can in the same way increase your physical strength and endurance so that whatever you may wish to overcome, develop, or increase further, you may do so by creating the necessary tendencies in those directions. In the training of the mind to produce the tendencies we desire, the first thing to do is to find in what direction we are moving mentally, and to discover this we must not simply examine our objective aims or intentions, but try to find where the real self is going. Is it moving towards sin, sickness, and decay, or towards character, health, youth, freedom, and power? Is it moving towards weakness and inferiority, or towards strength, wisdom, attainment, and abundance? Look at yourself closely and examine every mental tendency so that you may find in what direction the majority of them, and the strongest of them, are moving. Thus you will realize your present position, and may proceed intelligently to change your life and yourself according to your highest ideals. When we discover the tendencies of our minds, we shall know what our future is to be, provided those tendencies are permitted to continue their present lines of action. We shall at the same time realize that our present physical conditions, our present strength, our present ability, our present character, our present attainment and our present achievements, are all the results of the way our mental tendencies have been moving up to the present moment. The way we have lived, thought, and acted during the past, we shall find, has been determined by those same tendencies, and when we know these things, we shall know with a certainty how we may gain freedom and reach the goal we have in view. When we understand exactly the law that has produced everything in us thus far, we can, by using that law more intelligently proceed to create better and greater things for the future. What we are creating, what we are building, what we are developing, these things depend upon how the tendencies of the mind are directed, and if we wish to create our own destiny, we must take positive hold of all those tendencies and cause them to move in a manner that will result in these better conditions that we have in view. The first thing to do is to determine where you wish to go, mentally speaking, and what you wish to accomplish and realize. Know what you want, and what you want to be. Then examine the tendencies of your mind with a view of finding how many of those tendencies are at present moving in the right direction. Those that are not moving towards the goal you have in view must be changed, and those that are already moving towards that goal should be given added power. Then proceed to carry out your new purpose under the full control of your own consciousness of self-mastery. Do not waver for a moment, never look back, let nothing disturb your plans, and keep your aspirations too sacred to be mentioned. You will find that you will steadily and surely move directly where you wish to go. You will achieve more and more what you have planned, and your destiny will gradually take shape and form as you have desired. Chapter 7. How to maintain perfect health. There is intelligence in every atom in your body, every organ in your physical system is governed by a mind of its own, and this mind has the power to produce any change in its own organ, within the sphere of natural law that you may direct. To place yourself in such close connection with the intelligence in your body that you can readily direct it as you may desire, train yourself to think of every organ, every muscle, every nerve, every cell in your body, as possessing intelligence. Then speak the truth to this intelligence. When you are giving a metaphysical treatment to any organ, do not think of the physical organ, but address yourself to the intelligence that is in that organ. Tell this intelligence that it has the power to keep its own organ well, and that you expect it to do so. The response will be immediate, and the results you desire will, in nearly every instance, be secured instantaneously. Do not think of your body as dead matter, but as living substance, and mentally speak to every atom in your system accordingly. When you think of your body as mere matter, you separate, to a degree, the life of your mind from the life of your body. In consequence, your mind and body do not work in harmony, the body fails to respond to the direction of the mind, and you frequently feel as if the body were a burden instead of a perfectly tuned instrument, as it is intended to be. But when you think of every atom in your system as possessing intelligence, you place mind and body in perfect harmony, and as your conscious realization of this intelligence in every atom develops, your body will respond perfectly to almost anything your mind may direct. When there is something wrong in any organ in your body, begin at once to give instructions to the intelligence that is in that organ. Speak the truth to that intelligence, give it good, strong, positive suggestions, and proceed in the faith that this intelligence can carry out your suggestions. It is perfectly in accord with exact science to speak to this intelligence as you would to any conscious mind. Science has positively demonstrated that there is intelligence in every atom, also, that this intelligence will respond to the directions of the human mind, and carry out any instructions that may be given by that mind. You are therefore acting upon sound principles when you proceed to educate the intelligence in every organ in your body as you would educate your own children. To speak the truth to the intelligence of any organ is not to call its attention to the presence of sickness, weakness, or inharmony, but to tell this intelligence what it has the power to do. Use words to this effect: you know that you have the power to keep your own organ well, you can so govern your organ that it will perform its function perfectly, you know that you can do this, I expect you to do it, and I know that you will carry out my wishes to the letter. You are a part of universal intelligence, you are a perfect expression of infinite intelligence, and infinite intelligence is always well, therefore you are, in yourself, always well, you know perfect health, you have within yourself the power of perfect health, accordingly, you can produce perfect health, you can produce perfect health in your own organ now, and I know that you will. I have perfect faith in you, I know what you can do, and I know that you want to do everything that you can do. This means that you will produce perfect health in your own organ at once. I leave the rest to you, knowing that you will be perfectly true to your trust. Whenever you think of any organ in your body, think of the intelligence within that organ, and always give it the best instructions you can think of. You thus not only arouse the mind of every atom to greater effort, but you also train this mind to work in harmony with your purpose. The minds of all the atoms in your body will thus become a well-drilled army, an army of workers, working with you for better health, for more harmony, for greater strength, for higher attainments, in brief, for everything that you wish to realize to make your dreams of the ideal come true. To retain perfect health, one of the great essentials is to cause all the organs of your system to perform their functions perfectly, and this the intelligence of these organs can readily do if so directed. Think of your stomach as an organ of intelligence, and say to this intelligent organ that you expect a perfect digestion at all times. Speak firmly, but in love, as you would to a trusted servant, and speak in the tone you would employ when you fully expect your wishes to be carried out. Eliminate all doubt from those instructions and give a deep ring of supreme faith to the silent tone of your mental speech. Encourage your stomach to do its best, as you would encourage a horse or a child or some other intelligent being that is under your direction. Intelligent encouragement, to whomsoever given, always increases results, and especially so when your words have a positive ring of confidence, trust, and faith. Speak to your eyes as if they were intelligent beings, and tell them that they can see perfectly. Speak to your ears as if they were intelligent beings, and tell them that they can hear perfectly. Speak to your heart as if it were an intelligent being, and tell it that it can perform its function calmly, harmoniously, and perfectly, and that it can give a full circulation to every cell in your body without any exertion whatever. Speak to your nerves as if they were intelligent beings, and tell them that they have the power to be always serene, well poised, in perfect harmony, and in the highest state of efficiency. Speak to all the organs in your body as if they were intelligent beings, and tell them that they can do their work right. Encourage them all to do their best, tell them that you expect to get the best from them all and that you know that you will get it. Look upon all the organs in your body as constituting one great family, all working together in perfect harmony. Take them into your confidence, tell them what you wish to accomplish, tell them that you need their help, their very best help in all your undertakings, and that you know they will respond as one man. Speak to all the organs in your body as if they were intelligent beings, and know that they all are intelligent beings. Every atom is intelligent, and every organ is a being of intelligence. It should therefore be treated as such and spoken to as such. Do not think of the organs in your body as so many physical organs, but as so many minds, because that is what they really are. The idealist is right, though he does not always make himself clear. Reduce anything to its last analysis, and you'll find it to be mind. Even iron, when reduced to its last analysis, becomes a mental force in nature, and many scientists believe if they could reduce still further they would find it to be absolute spirit. What we speak of as matter is simply mind vibrating in the scale of tangibility. Matter does exist, but it does not exist apart from mind. Matter is mind in tangible expression. It is therefore strictly scientific to think of the body as visible mind, and to think of all the organs in the body as being centers of intelligence. And we shall find that when we take this view of the body, the physical system will no longer be a chunk of clay, but will become a more and more highly organized instrument, responding perfectly to every desire of the ruling mind, the conscious mind, the I am in man. When the body responds perfectly to the mind, the body will be perfectly well as long as thinking is wholesome, and the stronger the mind becomes the stronger will the body become. To keep the mind wholesome at all times, however, is not difficult, nor is it difficult to perpetually increase the strength of the mind. These are things anyone can do, therefore, anyone can stay well, and continue to grow into more and more life and power for an indefinite period. Know that there is no dead matter to deal with in your body, know that every cell in your body is living intelligence, and that this intelligence will readily comply with your desires for better health, greater strength, and higher efficiency. It is only necessary to think of this intelligence as actually being intelligence, and then to give your instructions in the faith that every one of them will be carried out to the letter. Have faith in your body. Expect your body to be well at all times, and make the power of this expectation so deep and so strong that it enters into the very life of every atom in your system. What you constantly expect your body to become, you give it the power to become. In brief, by constantly expecting certain results you awaken and develop the power that can produce those results. There is nothing that will help you so much to prevent all sickness as to constantly and subconsciously expect your body to be well at all times. Dwell on this expectation as much as possible, and make it a permanent part of your conscious existence. Expect every organ in your body to perform its function perfectly, do not expect anything to the contrary, nor even think for a moment that anything to the contrary could happen. Impress this expectation upon the intelligence of every organ in your body, and expect that intelligence to carry out your wishes. Expect your physical strength to hold out under every circumstance, never expect to feel weak or tired at any time, expect your strength to increase perpetually, and make that expectation a living power in every thought you think. Expect your body to stay well, to stay strong, to stay young, and to continue in health, youth, and vigor as long as you live. Expect your eyes to have perfect sight as long as you live, never expect to have to wear glasses, do not think of such a thing for a moment. What you always expect, you get, therefore expect only what you want. Expect your ears to hear perfectly as long as you live, expect your lungs to be sound as long as you live, expect your liver to be thoroughly alive as long as you live. Expect your stomach to digest anything. But give your stomach nothing but that which is wholesome. Eat moderately, eat anything you like, so it is wholesome, nourishing and properly prepared. Then expect to digest anything. You will never know that you have a stomach, so perfect and thorough will your digestion become. Expect your physical endurance to be equal to any occasion, and expect to stand anything. Never say that you can't stand this or that, say that you can stand anything, and expect your system to make good. But in all things use moderation. Be ready for anything, expect to be equal to any extreme that may be met, and do not hesitate to comply with any demand that emergency may call forth. However, in the ruling of your own life, let moderation be your keynote in all things. Whatever you may do or partake of, aim to secure or bring forth the best, and just enough of the best, no more and no less than enough, and let your idea of enough correspond with actual need properly harmonized with actual capacity. In the actual, all increase should be gradual, but in your thought, expect everything now. Think well of your body, no matter what its present conditions may be. Speak well of your body and compliment your body at every opportunity. Never say that your stomach is no account. One of these days it will make your evil words come true. Thousands of people die every year because they have condemned, vilified, and slandered their body, this beautiful temple of the soul. But it is just as easy to speak well of the body, and there is nothing that pays better. Praise your body and every organ in your body, and you will add many, many years to your personal life, while your days of sickness will be reduced to almost nothing. Say that your stomach is all right, not only once, but any number of times, and mean it. Your stomach will appreciate the compliment by making a special effort to be all right. Speak of every organ in the body in the same way, and they will do their very best to make good. Say that you have the best eyes in the world, the best lungs in the world, the best digestive system in the world. Say it to yourself and mean it, say it to others when you are approached as to your good health. If people think you are only talking, never mind, continue to praise your body and it will positively prove worthy of more and more praise. Continue to stand by all the organs in your system, and they will continue to stand by you. Never say that your lungs are weak, that your heart is bad, that your nerves are all shattered, or that your system is not much good anymore. Refuse to use such talk and refuse to listen to such talk. It is better to lose a friend than to lose your respect for your whole physical system. Friends that are worth keeping will think far more of you if you positively and uncompromisingly stand up for everything that is wholesome in thought and speech. We are now in a new age. It is no longer good form to find fault with anything. To look for the best in everything, and to emphasize the virtues of that best in all thought and speech is becoming the correct thing among a rapidly increasing number. You may therefore adopt the new method without any danger of isolation, no matter where you may go in the world. Do not underrate any organ or faculty in your possession, believe thoroughly in every fiber in your being. To underrate is to weaken, and weakness leads to disease. To think of an organ as inferior or unimportant is to decrease the life and the working capacity of that organ, and to continue to expect an organ to fail, or fall short of its functions, is to depress the life of that organ so that it actually becomes crippled in everything that it may be called upon to do. On the other hand, to continue perpetually to expect an organ to do its best, and to believe that it can do better, is to awaken more and more life in that organ. Accordingly, there will be a continual increase of strength, and more strength leads to better health invariably. To habitually underrate your body is to decrease your strength and shorten your years, but to praise your body, encourage your body, and expect more and more of your body, is to increase your strength and lengthen your years. Think of your entire system as being fully competent to comply with every requirement that you may meet in life. Think so well of your body that you expect it to be more than equal to every demand, then make that thought a living power during every moment of your existence. In consequence, your body will serve you better and better, it will develop in health, strength, and vigor, and will daily come up, nearer and nearer, to your highest expectations. Chapter 8. The real man is always well. The real man is the soul or the individuality, the I am, and that part of man is always perfectly well, in fact, cannot possibly be otherwise than well, a statement that can be demonstrated to the scientifically exact. To know that this is true, and to know that you yourself are the real man, that something in human nature that is always perfectly well, is to know the truth that makes man free. To the beginner in metaphysics and psychology, the statement that the real man is well may appear to be without foundation, but it is a statement that can be readily demonstrated in a number of ways. It can be demonstrated by pure reason, psychological research, finer personal experience, the evidence of higher states of consciousness, and several other effective methods. Besides, it is a truth that has been proclaimed in every age by the highest and best minds that the race has produced. The recognized foundation of this idea is found in the great truth that the real man, the spiritual man, the soul, the individuality, the I am, is created in the likeness of the infinite, and as the infinite of necessity always is well, the real man, created in the divine likeness, must also be well. Those, however, who do not accept the statement that man is created in the image of God, and who claim that we have no scientific evidence for the belief that the human individuality is always well, are requested to examine carefully that something in man that we speak of as the conscious I am. If the conscious I am were ever sick, the very principle of human individuality would cease to be a principle, and, therefore, could not continue to maintain individuality. In other words, if that principle were sick, it would be out of harmony with natural law, and, therefore, would necessarily cease to be that factor that governs, controls and maintains conscious existence in man. Accordingly, the human entity would literally go to pieces and all the elements and the forces of the human system would be in chaos. The fact, however, that individuality persists in sickness as well as in health proves that the individuality itself is always well, must necessarily be always well. We can take man as we find him in the ordinary, visible, tangible sense, and, by examining him carefully according to the ordinary recognized scientific method, demonstrate conclusively that the foundation of his being, the soul, the real man, the conscious I am, is and must be always well. In the first place, we will examine a person who enjoys perfect health and try to find why he enjoys perfect health. We shall find that he enjoys perfect health because all the faculties of his being are performing their functions properly, but why do they perform their functions properly under the circumstances? Evidently because they are acting according to natural law. But what is a law, and where do laws come from? Laws are inherent in man, and the power to properly obey and comply with those laws is also inherent in man. Man is created with all the laws necessary to his welfare and growth. These laws are at the foundation of his being and constitute in themselves a state of absolute order, and what is health but a state of absolute order? We understand, therefore, that the cause of health is inherent in man, and, therefore, that something in man which contains the cause of health must necessarily always have perfect health. We will now examine a person who is not enjoying perfect health and try to discover why he is not well. We shall find that he is not physically well because certain parts of his system are not performing their functions in harmony with natural law, but when we bring his system back into harmony with those laws, order is restored and perfect health regained. We conclude, therefore, that there are two states of being in man. The one is produced by virtue of natural law being inherent in man, and by virtue of the fact that that state itself must necessarily continue in perpetual harmony with natural law. The other state is produced whenever any of the laws of nature are violated. The first we call a state of perfect health, and it must of necessity be permanent, because a state that is produced by changeless law cannot come and go. It must always continue and always be what it naturally is. There is, therefore, within man a permanent state of health, and it is readily seen that that state pertains to what is called the real man, the real you or the self-conscious individuality. When we study this idea further, we find that fundamental existence is based upon certain laws. That existence is what it is, because certain laws are grouped together in a distinct and definite form of action, and this action must necessarily be changeless. If it were not changeless, the individual would not be himself all the time, part of the time he would be someone else. But through individuality, as we all know, he continues uninterruptedly to be himself. We conclude, therefore, that those laws that work together to produce the individual, or, in other words, those laws that are used by the individual in maintaining continued individuality, must always continue in the same mode of action. That this mode of action always continues in a state of perpetual health is evident, because, to perpetuate the same individuality, that particular mode of action would have to act in harmony with the basic laws of life, and anything that continues to act in harmony with those laws will always be well. We, therefore, conclude that fundamental existence is always in a state of health, and since the real man is the man that exists by virtue of fundamental existence, we also conclude that the real man is always in a state of perfect health. Those who reason clearly will understand from the above that we speak the perfect truth when we declare that the real man is well. There are, however, a score of other lines of reason through which the same truth can be demonstrated if it were necessary. The most convincing evidence, however, on any subject is always that of personal experience, and we shall find that personal experience in connection with the subject under consideration, will demonstrate exactly that the real man is well. To gain a better understanding of this part of the subject, it is highly important to understand the real nature of the soul. When speaking of the soul, we usually refer to it as something we possess instead of that something which actually is the possessor. We generally say I have a soul, though the correct statement is I am a soul. The cause of this mistake is found in the fact that the ordinary person is only conscious of the surface. To him the outer man is the only real man, because he is not conscious of the deeper and more permanent principles of his being. He, therefore, thinks of the objective person as the true self and refers to what is distinct from the person, as something that is possessed by the person, but when the mind begins to expand, and consciousness becomes aware of the deeper and finer things in life, the discovery is made that the outer mind is not the basic mind, and that the person is not the real self. The first discovery that is made through this mental growth is, that there is a subconscious mind, and if no further step is taken, the conclusion is formed that the subconscious is the soul. There are many scientific minds today who have discovered the subconscious and believe they have found the soul, but they are mistaken. The subconscious is only the inner side of the personal mind and is, therefore, not any more a part of the soul than the outer mind. To find the soul, therefore, we must go beyond the subconscious into that state of consciousness that deals exclusively with the real, the permanent, the perfect, and the absolute. When you discover the soul, as you will through the cultivation of the finer states of thought and consciousness, states that are created in the likeness of the absolutely real, you will no longer say that you have a soul. You will then find that you yourself are the soul, and that the soul constitutes the sum total of all the principles of individualized and permanent self-conscious being. When you make this discovery, you will no longer have to depend upon reason, logic, or the statements of others to prove that the real man is well. Your own consciousness will constantly reveal the fact to you, and you will know that the real man is well, just as clearly as you know that you exist. In fact, existence and wholeness will then become inseparable states. To be, and to be well, will become as one in your thought. You will then have discovered through actual conscious experience that individual existence is impossible without perpetual health, and also that that part of you which is life must therefore be perfectly well at all times. As you grow in the consciousness of your own individual I am, this truth will become clearer and clearer, until finally every thought you think will be actually permeated with the realization that the real man is well, and that you are the real man. Whether you are conscious or not of the fact that you are the soul, and that the soul or the real man is well, you can easily reason the matter out. Pure reason will convince you that there is something in man that is always well, and when you examine that something, you will find it to be your own individuality, the self-conscious I am, the real you. The statement as a man thinketh so is he does not refer to the soul or to the self-conscious individuality. It refers solely to the personal man. The real man is created in the image of the Supreme, and is above thought, therefore cannot be changed by thought. The real man is the thinker, the creator of thought, and that which creates thought can neither be influenced nor changed by thought. The personal man, however, being an expression of thought, can be changed or modified by thought in any way or at any time, though it is evident that all those changes and modifications can only take place within a certain sphere of action, and must take place through the laws that govern the real man in our present state of existence. The different functions of the personal man are the products of race development, and race development is the product of change in thought, subconscious as well as conscious. Therefore, every function in the human body is the result of ages of thought along a certain line. This can be readily demonstrated, and a complete exposition of this law would clear up 1,000 mysteries. What the different functions of the personal man are to do, and how, are also matters that are determined by the lines of thought continued for long periods of time. When certain habits of life or actions change, certain organs and faculties change their functions altogether, and it is changes of thought that produce changes in habits and actions. When we come to the chemical life of the system, we find that every mental state produces a certain chemical effect upon the body. When the mental state under consideration is weak, no susceptible change may occur, but when that state is strong and deeply felt, a decided chemical effect will positively take place. You may partake of the most wholesome food that can be prepared and yet turn the entire contents of the stomach at the time into poisonous elements simply by an intense fit of anger, and it is a well-known fact, a fact that has been proven by scientific experiments, that worry and mental depression during mealtime can cause the most digestible food to become wholly indigestible. To be afraid to eat certain things has a tendency to cause those very foods to become indigestible and injurious to the system in case they should be taken. On the other hand, it has been proven that a cheerful, joyous mind entertained at mealtime can change indigestible food into elements that the system can digest and assimilate with perfect ease. In fact, psychological experiments along this line have forced the conclusion that the mind can do almost anything with anything that is taken into the system, and also that the fear of any particular condition or effect will tend to produce that condition or effect. The fear of any disease will tend to produce that disease in a measure, if not physically, then mentally. Entertaining fear of smallpox has been known to develop smallpox germs in a body that was thoroughly pure, healthful, and wholesome, when there were no such germs in the vicinity. Other contagious diseases have been produced in the same way, proving that the actions of the mind can and do affect the chemical life of the body. To expect health and to believe with a full faith that you are becoming well can, and in thousands of instances has, produced perfect health in cases that all physicians had given up. These are interesting facts, facts that are being demonstrated every day, and that every person can demonstrate through his own personal experience. The better we understand mind and body, the more clearly we understand that every condition in the body is the result of certain continued lines of thought, personal thought or race thought, but since each person can think his own thought, the race thought continues because it is not eliminated through the person's own original thought. The effect of nature's elements and forces upon the human body depends largely upon the state of mind at the time. In a certain state of mind, a draught of fresh air will produce a cold, while in another state no ill effects whatever will follow that particular cause. But it is not only in the physical personality that these facts are noted. It can also be demonstrated that character is the direct result of certain lines of thought, and therefore character can be changed completely by producing a change of thought and mental action. In recent years it has been discovered that anyone can increase his ability through the scientific application of mind and thought to his various talents and faculties, and that even rare genius may be developed in the same way is now accepted as strictly scientific. The fact that character, mental capacity as well as the personal man, is the result of the way the individual thinks, the understanding of how to think and what to think becomes exceedingly important. What we think about anything depends upon understanding what we have of that particular thing. Therefore, to think correctly we must not only understand things, we must understand the process of thought. The principal cause of wrong thinking in this age is found in the ignorance of the nature of thought itself. We may understand things in a general way, but we do not always understand thought or the effect that thought can produce upon things. The scientist may think correctly about every element in the universe, according to apparent facts, and yet be thinking detrimental thought a large part of the time, that is, he might be giving the same creative power of thought to the negatives in life as he does to the positives. The negatives and positives both exist and they have certain natures of their own. We should understand these natures and think correctly about them at all times, for whenever we think about anything, we employ mental creative energy and thereby tend to create in our own minds a likeness of the things which we think about. For this reason the average person generally produces just as many weak qualities as strong ones. He permits his mind to create the weak as well as the strong. There are metaphysicians who declare that it is wrong to even admit the existence of evil, that it is wrong thought to believe that evil has existence, but this attitude, though seemingly helpful, is, nevertheless, Detrimental. There are evils in the world, there are empty places in the world, and there are weak negative places all about us. To deny that they are here would be to delude ourselves, and delusion cannot give the perfect freedom. It is not wrong to admit that evil exists, and you will not necessarily create detrimental thought through such an admission, but it is wrong to permit your mind to create thought that is just like those evil or weak conditions that you have recognized. You can admit the existence of a thing without producing a picture of that particular thing in your own mind. If you have perfect control over your creative energies, you can recognize the existence of all the negatives and wrongs in life and not produce a single one of them in your own mind, character, or personality. Right thinking consists in creative thought that is patterned after the good qualities of life. Wrong thinking consists in creating thought that is patterned after the perverted conditions in life. All creation of thought is in the subconscious, therefore you can think objectively as much as you like about the ills and wrongs of life. You will not reproduce those conditions in yourself if there is no subconscious action at the time. In other words, what you think about or recognize will not be created in yourself, unless you permit your ideas or beliefs of those things to sink into your subconscious mind, and this you can prevent by refusing to give deep feeling to those ideas that you do not wish reproduced in yourself. Only those ideas or mental states that have deep feeling can enter the subconscious. This is a fact that is extremely important and should be observed most rigidly in every mental process. From this law we learn that our thought is the result, not only of our understanding of things, but of our understanding of thought itself and its effect upon things. When we understand thought and the creative process of thought, we learn to create only right thought, without having to deny the existence of anything that may exist. When we understand the effect of thought upon things, we will know what thought to think under all sorts of circumstances and conditions, and thus produce the very effects we desire. The personal man, all told, is the exact likeness of the sum total of all our ideas, thoughts, beliefs, mental attitudes, mental states, our understanding of things, and our entire mental world. Our mental world is the exact likeness of our understanding, defining the term in the largest and broadest sense, and our understanding in itself, or in its real nature, is like the thing understood. In other words, when we understand a particular thing, we reproduce in the mind all those elements that constitute the nature of that particular thing. Therefore, since the real man is well, to understand or to be conscious of the real man, is to produce perfect health in the personal man. This is a fact that will be clearly understood when we remember the law, that whatever we become conscious of we will express in the personality. When we understand any particular thing, we become conscious of its qualities, and, according to the law just mentioned, we will express those qualities in our own nature. When we understand the real man, we become conscious of the qualities of perfect health, because the real man is always well, and, therefore, we will naturally express perfect health in our own personal system. It is a well-known fact that the most stubborn disease will vanish immediately when consciousness fully realizes the great fact that the real man is always well, and it is being demonstrated more and more that those who live habitually in the realization of the fact that the real man is always well are always in good personal health. We should also realize in this connection that that attitude of mind that constantly recognizes the perfect wholeness of the human being, is an unfailing preventive of all kinds of human ills. As previously stated, thought can do practically anything to the body or its conditions, and what the thought is to do will depend upon what it is in itself. Therefore, a thought that is created in the likeness of health will be healthful and will convey health to the system, and when all thoughts are healthful, the entire person will be made perfectly well, because every condition in the physical body is determined by the sum total of our thoughts and mental states. When your mind is filled with the conviction that the real man is well, and that you yourself are the real man, every thought will be thoroughly wholesome, elevating and upbuilding, and conditions of health, strength, and wholeness must invariably come to the entire person. There is no darkness where there is light, and there can be no unhealthful thought in the mind that moves and lives in the full conscious realization of absolute health. Every thought is patterned after some impression, therefore, if all the impressions of mind convey the idea of perfect health of real being, every thought we think will be a power for health, and will give only health to the system. Here we should remember that every thought is a vibration and that it sends its silent thrill throughout the entire system. Every thought you think will in this way impress every atom of your being with itself and with its own life and power, and will therefore carry its life and power to the minutest cell. It is therefore clearly evident that when we live and think in the understanding of the real man, we will think only health-producing thought, and thus produce complete and absolute health in every part of mind, body, and personality. Chapter 9. Realizing the perfect health within. From whatever point of view we may approach the subject, from that of pure reason, from that of experience, or from that of higher consciousness, we must conclude that there is something in man that is always well. Whatever may happen, this something will positively never get sick, and the reason is that this something contains the principle of absolute health. Principles never change, therefore, the principle of health being health, will never be anything else but health, and nothing can cause it to change from its perfect and original state. This principle of health permeates every atom in the being of man, and so long as everything in the human system acts in perfect harmony with this principle, there will be perfect health throughout the being of man. The secret of perfect health is to train the elements and forces of the system to act in harmony with the principle of health, and this training may be promoted by growing into the consciousness of the real nature of the principle of health. The elements and forces of the human system are governed by the actions of the subconscious, therefore to train these elements to act in harmony with the principle of health, the mind must steadily grow into a subconscious realization of health. Whatever is deeply realized in the mind will become an active force in the subconscious, and this force will express itself through the elements and forces of the body, reproducing its own nature in the body. When the mind grows in the realization of health, the force of health will become active in the subconscious, and conditions of health will in consequence be produced in every part of the body. To cause the mind to grow into the realization of health, the principle of continuous advancement should be applied in the attainment of health, that is, the mind should advance constantly in the conscious realization of the real nature of the principle of absolute health. Conscious advancement into the realization of absolute health will eliminate every form of disease, because to advance into health is to enter more perfectly into the nature, the conditions, and the domains of health. To enter into health is to be in health, and there can be no disease in the human system when every part of the system is in health. Every part of the system will be in health when all of the elements and the forces of the system act in perfect harmony with the principle of health, and these will act in harmony with that principle when the subconscious is permeated with the realization of health. To establish more and more perfectly in the subconscious the realization of health, the mind must continue to grow into the consciousness of absolute health. This growth in health must be continuous, for to live is to live more, and the more life lives, the greater will necessarily be the capacity of the health required. To retain perfect health, it is absolutely necessary to grow steadily into the conscious possession of more and more health. Continuous advancement is the purpose of life, and everything, to be in harmony with life, must advance in like manner. To promote continuous and conscious advancement into the realization of health, attention should be concentrated frequently upon the inner world of health, harmony, and wholeness, or the principle of absolute health. We grow into the conscious realization and possession of those states, conditions, or qualities that we think of the most, that is, when such thinking has feeling and depth. It is therefore evident that by keeping your mental eye single upon the inner principle of perfect health, the mind will steadily grow into perfect health, and thus gain conscious possession of that perfect health. When the mind gains conscious possession of health, the subconscious life of the system becomes thoroughly healthful, and as is the subconscious life of the system, so is also the system itself. When attention is being concentrated upon the inner principle of health, the mind should deeply feel that this principle permeates every atom in one's being, because this feeling of health in every part of the system will impress the subconscious with the life of health, and when the life of perfect health becomes active in the subconscious, no form of disease can exist anymore in the human system. Whatever you become conscious of, that you will manifest or express throughout your mental or physical system. In other words, whatever is involved in consciousness will be evolved through the personality. This is one of the greatest of all metaphysical laws, because it places the entire personality in the hands of individual consciousness. Through this law we can bring forth any quality or condition desired by simply becoming conscious of its interior or potential existence. What consciousness perceives the mind creates, and what the mind creates will be expressed in every part of the human personality. The present conditions of the body, be they health or disease, harmony or discord, strength or weakness, are the results of the recent thought of the individual, with possibly a few exceptions in some instances, while the character is the result of all that the individual has thought and all that he may have inherited from the race. The same is true of talents, tendencies, and desires. The entire personality, including character and mentality, is but an effect of what the mind has been creating up to the present moment, and what the conditions of the personality are to be in the future will be determined by what new creations the mind may produce. When new creations come forth from the mind, the old ones disappear. For this reason it is possible to largely modify physical appearance and change bodily conditions, mental tendencies, and desires, while the character can in most instances be transformed absolutely. In all our efforts to produce any desired change in ourselves, physically or mentally, we should always remember the law that whatever we become conscious of, that we will express through ourselves, and what we express, gradually becomes a part of ourselves. Whatever you constantly see in the great within, the vast field of consciousness, that the mind will create and express in the personality. This is a law that never fails. Whatever you continue to see yourself become, that you will gradually and surely become, and no obstacle in the world can prevent it. The mind is constantly creating. It cannot cease to create so long as life continues. To live is to think. All thinking is creative in some sense or form, and all that the mind creates will come forth sooner or later unless it is recreated before expression takes place. Personally, you become what you mentally create, provided your creations are completed and permitted to come forth undisturbed, and the secret in this connection is to keep the eye of consciousness single upon the ideal which you realize, create, and express, and continue to keep it there until you get what you want, no matter how many obstacles will come in your way. If you continue thus, you will positively succeed. What you continue to see in the within becomes a mental image. All such images act as models for thinking, and the mind will create thoughts, states, conditions, and actions that correspond exactly with those images. Every idea that comes into the mind becomes an image, and while it lasts, millions of mental creations may be formed in the likeness of this idea. All these creations will appear in the person unless they are recreated before expression takes place. We therefore understand why it is so extremely important to have the right idea about everything and why our ideals should be kept before mind constantly. The more deeply an idea or belief is impressed upon consciousness, that is, the more thoroughly it is felt, the longer it remains as a model for the mental creative processes. Consequently, the more thoughts will be reproduced in its likeness, and the greater will be its effect upon the person. This is the reason why the life of a person is ruled by his predominant ideas, and why the person who has simply a few small ideas becomes narrow, one-sided, fanatical, and finally superficial. Whatever you continue to feel deeply in the within, that will positively come true in the without, for what is inwardly felt in consciousness will, according to law, be created and expressed. To become conscious of truth is to deeply feel the very soul of truth, and consequently to express only true states and conditions in the personality. When you become conscious of truth, you establish a true state of affairs throughout your entire system. Everything will be right and well, and all the functions of your being will work together for your highest welfare. The remarkable changes for the better that have taken place in the lives of those who have entered, even to a slight degree, the conscious realization of truth are due wholly to this fact. To become conscious of health is to feel the existence of health in the within, to realize that there is a source of unbounded health in the inner life, and to come into perfect touch with this source. Every effect must have a cause, and, since health is expressed more or less in every person, it must, like other expressions, come from some source. Health does not come to some by mere accident and depart from others in the same way. Health comes through a definite law and departs through the violation of that law. The universe is based upon law. Everything that appears through law. It has a definite source, and there are definite methods through which various degrees of expression may be secured. The leading minds of every age, those minds that have understood the inner principles of real life, have been aware of the great truth that there is an abundance of health in the interior life of every personal being, that there is actually a fountain of unbounded life and wholeness in the soul of every man, and that by placing the mind in perfect touch with this inner source of health, an abundance of health will constantly flow into the personality. To place the mind in more perfect touch with the inner source of health, we must become conscious of this interior health, that is, we must deeply feel the perfect health that is within us, the health and wholeness that permeates every atom in existence. The consciousness of health is attained by keeping the mental eye single upon the real life of the soul. Know that the soul is the very essence of health, that it not only contains health, but that it is health. The soul is health and wholeness. The soul is power and purity. The soul is love and wisdom. The soul is everything that is in the Supreme. Turn consciousness, mind, thought and attention upon the perfect health of the soul and enter more deeply, and ever more deeply, into the spirit of this perfect health. Gradually you will feel more and more keenly the real life and power of this absolute health, and what you feel will be expressed through every fiber of your being. Think only about the perfect health that is within you. Refuse absolutely to talk about disease or to think about disease. Keep the mental eye single upon the wholeness of the spirit in which you live and move and have your being, and realize that this same wholeness is in you. Before long you will know that it is. Then you will feel it and express it with so much power that all disease must vanish from your system like darkness before a strong light. Consciousness develops naturally and steadily along those lines to which we give the greatest amount of thought and attention. Therefore, by thinking constantly about the perfect health and the unbounded health that is within us, we shall soon feel and become conscious of that health, and what we consciously feel, that we shall invariably express through every fiber of our being. The real life of everything is in a state of health. Everything is in a healthful condition when in a normal condition, and the inner cause of the normal always is normal. In other words, the law that produces normal conditions must always be normal. It must be changeless, as all other laws in nature, and the principle from which health proceeds must always be in perfect health. We, therefore, conclude once more that there is a state within us that is always well, and that there is a law in the human system that is always ready to produce health if applied. No matter how much sickness or weakness may appear in the body or in the outer mind, there is a state in the deeper life within that is always well and strong. The fountain of health and life and power is always in action in the great within. The inner source of health and strength is constantly giving health and strength to every part of mind and body, and sickness or weakness can begin only when the force of health and strength is misdirected or wasted. The inner source of health is constantly producing health throughout the system, therefore, if the force of health were never misused or wasted, the entire system would always be in health. To prevent the misdirection of the force of health, the mind should live constantly in the realization of the inner source of perfect health. To be conscious of real health is to express real health, and if this consciousness is perpetual, the expression of health in every part of the system will be perpetual. To produce this realization, all thinking should be trained to work in perfect touch with this inner state that is always well, and the mind should always live so near to this state that it should constantly be aware of its existence. When the body is in a condition of ill health, the first step towards healing is to recognize the existence of that absolute state within that is always well. The second step is to impress upon every thought the fact that this state does exist, and that it has its being in every atom throughout your entire system. To continue to impress upon the mind the fact that the entire system is now, and always, filled through and through with a state that is well, always well, is to develop the realization of health. And as this realization is developed, the force of health will begin to express itself in every part of mind and body. When the mind gains a full realization of this state of health, you will feel that you are in health, and when you are in health you are well, absolutely well, through and through. When you are in the realization of health, every thought that you think and every word that you speak will also be in that same realization. Such words and thoughts will be permeated with the life of health and will consequently have healing on their wings. Every thought that is formed in the mind while the mind feels the state of absolute health will be a health-producing thought. It will be as natural for such thought to produce health, wherever it may go in the system, as it is for fire to produce heat, or for a sunbeam to produce light. Herein may be found the secret power of affirmations and constructive suggestions. To suggest health to oneself, or to affirm a statement of health, while the mind is in touch with the inner source of absolute health, is to give that statement the power of health, and the thought or the word that proceeds from that statement will produce health just as surely as the sunbeam will produce light. However, those affirmations that are made while the mind is not in touch with this state of absolute health will be powerless to produce health, no matter how determined or sincere we may be at the time. The more superficial the mind is while making affirmations, the weaker and the more deficient in health-producing elements will those thoughts be that are formed at the time, while the more deeply the mind enters into the state of absolute health, the more power will every thought contain that is formed during such a realization. The secret of metaphysical methods in all their phases is found in this law, and the same is true of the power of the mind over the body. Any mind that gains a perfect realization of that state of absolute health that permeates every part of the system will give the power of health to its thoughts, and by concentrating the power of those thoughts upon the body, health will be produced in the physical system. The power to cure yourself or prevent disease in this manner may be steadily developed by training the mind to live more and more deeply in the realization of that state in the being of man that is always well, and to train the mind in this respect think constantly of this inner state of absolute health, and think with deep feeling. When thinking of this state, impress upon the mind the fact that absolute health permeates every part of the system. Know that you are actually filled through and through with a life and power that is well, always well, and that you literally live and move and have your being in a living sea of perpetual health. Should your mind form tendencies to doubt this truth, know that this truth can be conclusively demonstrated by anyone, then impress upon your mind the fact that it is so. After a time your mind will know that it is so, and will at the same time discover that sickness and weakness have mysteriously disappeared. The mind that is superficial has very little power over the body, but as consciousness deepens into the realization of the fact that there is extraordinary power in the mind, limitless power in fact, the mind finds that the body will respond almost instantly to any desire that may be expressed. When the mind lives in perfect touch with the inner source of power, every thought will be given more power, and will consequently have the power to produce any cause or change in the body that is desired. Such thoughts will actually be power, because they were created while the mind was in power, and the thought that is power can produce in the system any effect that would naturally come from that power. It is therefore evident that when the mind lives in the realization of the inner state of absolute power, the power of the mind over the body will be complete, and the desire of the mind to produce perfect health in the body will invariably be followed by the realization of perfect health. Chapter 10. Purity of Mind and Body. That the body must be pure in order that health may be maintained is self-evident, and most systems of prevention and cure have given due attention to the ensuring of physical purity, but physical purity is not sufficient to perfect health. There must also be mental purity, and mental purity means not only wholesome thought and right thought, but also the right mental conception of purity itself. We must know what purity actually is before the mind can be pure, because a false belief about purity would constitute mental impurity, just as much so as any form of unwholesome thought or desire. A certain view of purity has declared that to the pure all things are pure, implying the idea that things in themselves are always pure, and that impurity can exist only in the human mind. This view, however, though true in a certain sense, does not from the ordinary viewpoint express the whole truth, and the reason why is evident when we realize that it would be impossible for a mind to conceive of impurity that was living in a world where all things were always pure. This same view has led many to the conclusion that if you are pure in motive, or mean well, you can do what you like, your action will be pure and right and good. In other words, so long as you think the action is pure, it will be a pure action, regardless of what the moral code may decide in the matter, but such a conclusion can come only from a mind that does not understand the real meaning or the real purpose of purity. When we know what purity means, we know that every thought or action that does not conform to the law of purity will be impure, no matter whether we think it pure or not. Our influence cannot make a natural cause modify its natural effect, and our thoughts cannot change the inevitable action of law. It is only superficial thinkers who believe that every action will be pure if we think it is pure, and that they can accordingly do as they please. However, the power of thought is immense, and in the last analysis constitutes the cause of every condition that appears in the personal being of man. Nevertheless, will any line of thinking be pure simply because you think it is pure? That is the question, and it is a question that the majority have neglected to consider. When we say that thought is the cause and the only cause of whatever transpires in the personal man, we refer to the thought of the heart, that is, subjective thought action. Mere objective opinion cannot be cause, and has no effect whatever upon the forces of mind or body, nor does it affect circumstances or things in the least. You may think objectively that a certain action is pure, and at the same time there may be impure subjective mental states in your mind that are causing that very action to be impure. In other words, if there are impure subjective states in your mind, the actions coming from those states will be impure, no matter how much you may objectively think and affirm that those actions are pure. As long as there are impure states in the within, there will be impure actions in the without, and your objective thought, or opinion, or belief about the matter will count for naught. This should be clear to everybody, and those who see it clearly will realize that a great deal of the thought that passes as profound metaphysics today is nothing but illusion, in brief, foundationless ideas that have sprung from minds that could not see the difference between objective opinion and subjective causation. It is subjective causation that determines whether things are to be pure in your world or not. What you think of the matter in your outer mind will have nothing to do with it. True, you can so direct your objective thinking that it will gradually change subjective causation, but to do this your objective thinking must be according to mental laws, and not according to opinions. The statement, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he," might read, everything in the mind, body, or environment of any man is the direct or indirect result of the subjective causations that are active in the being of that man. This being true, whatever change we wish to produce anywhere in life, the desired change must first be made in the causations within the subjective mind. There are many minds that change their opinions, only permitting subjective causes to remain unchanged, and then wonder why everything in their lives continues in the same way as before. Most of these changes that are made in the objective opinions are not made according to the psychological laws, but according to the passing views that come from the various sources in the without. If you have changed your thought, but find no change for the better in your life, you may know that it is only your outer thought, your objective opinions that you have changed, the subjective causes remain unchanged. Whenever your subjective or subconscious mind is changed, there will be a corresponding change in your life, no matter how that subjective change was brought about, whether it came from old-fashioned conversion, modern metaphysics, esoteric experiences, or profound scientific thought. But in this connection we must bear in mind that subjective changes, though coming in many ways, can be permanent only when we fully understand the laws of mental change and act accordingly. This is why so few systems have fully satisfied, why nearly all of them have developed one-sidedness in their disciples, and why they have, in nearly every instance, become creed-bound. The full understanding of life is lacking in nearly all such systems of thought, because that full understanding is not sought. Nevertheless, they all possess a power for good, having the power of changing for the better subjective causations in one or more places. To find the great laws through which subjective causations may be changed as we desire, it becomes necessary to learn what is really meant by the statement, "To the pure all things are pure." Since the statement was made by one of the greatest psychologists in history, it must possess absolute truth when understood from that viewpoint of consciousness from which it was expressed. To find the true meaning of that statement is not difficult, however, when we realize that purity means to be in the proper place, and that impurity means to be out of place. In the last analysis, elements, forces, and substances are not impure, but impure conditions may be formed amongst them when something transpires to cause those elements to be misplaced. Since all impurity comes directly from the misplacement of things that are in themselves pure, we can readily realize that all things could be pure to those who are pure, because those who are absolutely pure would have the power to cause all things in their lives to be properly placed. Things would not be pure because those pure minds believed all things to be pure, but because they would naturally, through their superior power, change impurity into purity. When you attain such a complete mastery of yourself that all the elements, forces, functions, and activities in your being are always in place, always doing what they are created for, and are never misdirected, you will have the power to properly place everything in your world. Your understanding of purity and the proper placing of things will be so thorough that you will know exactly where everything belongs, and will have the power to place it there. Having become conscious of the true order of things, and being master of the situation, you will be able to establish true order, both in the within and in the without. Having established absolute purity in your subjective mentality through your consciousness of absolute purity, everything that enters your system will naturally become pure at once, though it might have been impure before coming in contact with your life. Everything becomes warm when it enters a warm room, provided the heat is sufficient to overcome all opposite conditions, that is, when the heat in any place is absolute heat, everything that comes into that place will become warmth, no matter what it was before. In the same way, when the purity in any place is absolute purity, everything that enters that place will also become pure. In other words, when everything is properly placed in a certain place and held in place by an irresistible power, everything that enters that place will also properly place itself. Negative conditions are powerless when in the presence of such positive conditions as are completely positive, and disorder cannot possibly exist in the midst of order when that order is complete. When we realize the transmuting power of positive forces, we shall soon understand the full truth of these statements. It is a well-known fact that a strong personality naturally appropriates and makes a part of himself any force that he may come in contact with, provided that force is not as strong as the predominating positive force in himself, and he naturally transforms that force so that it becomes similar, both in quality and action, to the predominating states of his being. A personality that is in perfect harmony, and that continues in harmony, becomes stronger and stronger, even when passing through conditions of extreme discord. The forces of discord are transformed as they come in contact with the system of a strong, well-poised personality, and become harmonious forces which he can appropriate and use. He meets the enemy, so to speak, and makes it his own. In like manner, the mind that remains unshaken in his convictions increases in power, influence, and supremacy the more opposition he encounters. It is the mind that falls down in the midst of opposition that fails utterly, while the mind that remains untouched and undisturbed becomes a giant. He not only retains his own power, but adds to his own the power of the losing opposition. Consequently, when the subjective states are properly placed, in harmony, in order, and in absolute purity, and you hold all those subjective states in absolute purity, the force of purity in your system will be so strong and so positive that it cannot be disturbed or changed by anything. Whatever may enter your system while it is in this condition will become pure, no matter what it was before. The most impure elements and conditions will crumble into atoms in the presence of a force of purity that remains unshaken, and then reassemble again in a new compound, substance, or condition that is absolutely pure. Whatever comes into your system, therefore, or into your world, will be transformed into purity at the very door, provided you continue in the consciousness of absolute and irresistible purity. Upon the arch, above the entrance to the mansion of your life, you may safely write, "Whatever enters here leaves impurity behind." The demon becomes an archangel the very moment he passes through your door, metaphorically speaking, and the poison becomes a nourishing food the very moment it enters your system. The wrong thoughts and hatreds, and the ill will that may come to you from minds that do not understand you, will be transformed at once into valuable energies that you may use to develop yourself or build up your health, strength, and power. Those who do not accept this extreme conclusion, and it is certainly extreme, should suspend their judgment until they have examined those laws in nature that govern transformation and transmutation in the realms of nature. When we experiment in the chemical world, we can readily demonstrate that one force can entirely transform another force and make it a part of itself, provided the ruling force remains unshaken while the new combination is being made, and when we look into the human world we find innumerable illustrations to prove how an undisturbed mind, a mind forever standing firm upon his convictions, finally sweeps everything before him, but it remains for the new psychology to reveal the real secret back of these phenomena. It has also been demonstrated through recent experiments that a positive mental force can, by remaining positive, transform every negative force or condition that may come into the same sphere of action, and when we know that all phases of impurity are negative conditions, perpetuating themselves simply through the indifference or the inactivity of the positive forces about them, we understand clearly the real truth that is back of the whole matter. Then it becomes clear to any mind that the pure can cause all things to become pure, and that in the world of him who is pure, everything else will naturally tend to become pure. It could not be otherwise. He is the master when he chooses to be, and there is no greater mind than the pure mind. We conclude, therefore, that in this sense the statement is true, to the pure all things are pure, because, in the life of the pure, impurity is at once transformed into purity. Looking at the subject from a still higher viewpoint, we find that the pure mind enters that state of consciousness where everything is discerned in its original nature, and in that state everything is in place, that is, everything is right and in perfect order. In other words, the pure mind, having become conscious of absolute purity, can see all things as they are in that original state, or before they became misplaced, or misdirected by ignorant minds. The pure mind naturally dwells in that sublime state, therefore to such a mind all things are pure, not because he simply thinks so, but because in that higher field of consciousness all things are properly placed, that is, in the realm of pure reality, everything is pure, and right, and good. By becoming pure, he has entered that loftier realm where everything is pure, and consequently he sees everything as such. Every thorough student of life will eventually learn that there is an inner world back of the exterior, phenomenal side of things. It is the cosmic realm, and this realm, being beyond the interference of the human mind, understanding always remains pure. To enter this realm is to see everything as it is in a pure state of being, as in this realm everything is forever in its pure state, but no mind can enter this inner state and discern cosmic life until purity is attained, both in physical and in mental action. The disturbed, misplaced mind can discern only the discord on the surface, while the calm, serene, absolutely pure mind gravitates naturally to its own higher plane and enters the consciousness of that state of existence where everything is absolutely pure. To train oneself to consciously dwell in that world within, beyond the turmoil of the personal man, is of the highest importance, not only to the health of the body, but also to the development of all the higher qualities latent within. It is ideal living, and it is not simply imagination, it is profoundly real and indescribably beautiful. Back of the disturbed surface of life there is a pure, calm, beautiful state of being, as tangible and as real as reality itself. It is the kingdom within, and the source of all the unbounded possibilities in man. When one becomes pure, he enters that pure world, therefore to the pure all things are pure, because when one becomes pure he enters a state of being where everything is pure, always was, and always will be. In perfect health there is always purity, and in absolute purity there is always perfect health. Disease can thrive only in the impure, and the impure always tends to produce disease. Therefore, one of the royal paths to health is to be absolutely pure in all things and at all times, that is, to be pure in body, in mind, in thought, in feeling, and desire. There is strength in purity, because in purity there is no waste of life, and in strength there is wholeness and health. The clean body becomes vigorous and virile. The clean mind becomes able, forceful, and brilliant, and clean thoughts, feelings, and desires invariably lead to greater and better things. Purity means life in abundance, and when life is abundant all the good things of life are invariably added. Chapter 11. The Happiness Cure. Health is harmony. Disease is discord. The more perfect the harmony in the human system, the better the health, and happiness invariably produces harmony. When the forces and elements of mind and body work together in harmony, wholesome conditions are naturally produced, and if the creation of wholesome conditions is continued for any reasonable length of time, all disease will finally disappear. There can be no discord when the harmony is full and complete, there can be no darkness when the light is sufficiently strong. The happier you are, the less energy you waste, because added happiness means added harmony, and the system wastes no energy while it continues in perfect harmony. The less energy you waste, the more vitality you will possess, and the greater your supply of vital energy, the less liable you are to sickness. When your system is absolutely full of vital energy, you will contract no disease whatever, not even diseases that are said to be contagious. Retain all your energy and you will never be sick, but to this end harmony must be perfect, and perfect harmony is possible only when happiness is continuous. When the human system is thoroughly harmonious, every particle of food that is taken will contribute its full nourishing power, and to properly nourish the system is one of the chief secrets of health. In the average system, however, a great deal of the food taken is not digested, there being too much discord among the digestive forces, and, therefore, actual starvation obtains in the midst of plenty. There are millions of cells in the majority of human bodies that are daily starved to death, regardless of the fact that 3 full meals are eaten every day. Those starved cells wither up and become waste matter, clogging the system, thus giving extra work to the forces of elimination and reconstruction. And the more energy you use up in getting rid of useless matter, the less energy you will have for your work, your life, and your thought. A fit of anger, or prolonged excitement, is frequently followed by a cold, and the reason is that agitation, in every form, tends to prevent proper digestion and assimilation. Most of the food that is taken at the time, or that has been taken within the last 8 hours, will simply become waste matter, and all the starved cells will, in like manner, become waste matter. The system is thus clogged from 2 sources, and what we call a cold must naturally follow. The system, however, would have been clean and well and properly nourished through and through if there had been no anger or excitement, but harmony and happiness instead. There would be but few cases of indigestion if happiness and harmony were continuous in every mind, and when you prevent all the ills that come directly or indirectly from imperfect digestion, you prevent fully 3/4 of all the ills known to human life. But the powers of happiness and harmony do not end with the digestive functions, their effect upon the nervous system is just as far-reaching and beneficial. Make continuous happiness a part of your life, and your nerves will be as good as new as long as you live. The same is true concerning the mind. Nourish your mind with happiness as you nourish your body with food, and the ills of mind will never gain a foothold in your life for a moment. You will be mentally vigorous and strong every day, even though you should live as long upon earth as those worthy examples of ancient days. The forces of growth, recuperation, and reconstruction are all given a healthy stimulus by happiness. No matter how tired out the system may be, it will recuperate in a very short time, if you are thoroughly happy, but this the average person fails to do. When he feels tired, he permits himself also to feel downcast, weary, and depressed, and, therefore, instead of helping nature to restore normal conditions, he places every possible obstacle in her way. When your horse is wearied by one load, you do not expect to give him a rest by having him hitched to a heavier load, but this is the very thing the average man does to his own personality. When the body is tired from physical burdens, he gives it a mental burden instead, and is blind enough to think that he is giving his body a rest. Mental burdens exhaust more vital energy than the hardest kind of physical work, and mental burdens are always useless, but they can be removed completely by the power of happiness. But there is happiness and happiness, there is the genuine and the counterfeit. The former produces harmony, health, and virility, the latter produces weakness, depression, and hysterics. When you are bubbling over with joy, and feel like shouting, you are not happy, you are mentally intoxicated, and intoxication, whatever its nature, is an enemy to health. True happiness is calm, deeply felt, composed and contented. It is not merely intellectual, nor is it lacking in feeling. It is not necessary for the mind to run riot in order that it may feel deeply, or express the full warmth of tenderness and emotion. Those emotions that are deeply felt and calmly serene are always the most tender, they are what may be termed the full emotions, because they express all that is tender in body, mind, and soul, and they therefore give the highest and most satisfying form of joy. True happiness enjoys all things deeply but serenely, and you can always know when you have had such happiness, because it makes your countenance radiant with a restful sweetness. To gain real happiness, the first essential is to train yourself to think constantly of the great value of such happiness, and especially with regard to its health-producing power. Such thinking will tend to produce a subconscious desire for happiness, and what the subconscious begins to desire it also begins to create. Train yourself to think of happiness as a mental necessity, just as food is a physical necessity, and you will gradually train every element and force in your system to work for the creation of happiness. By creating within yourself a constant demand for happiness, you will inspire the elements of your own nature to produce the desired supply, and ere long the happiness you desire will become a permanent part of your life. Every moment of joy that comes to you should be entered into with a deep, contented calmness. Do not permit your happy moments to bubble over on the surface, and do not permit yourself to be wrought up when occasions for great joy come into your life. Make it a point to turn your attention to the richer depths of every joy that you feel, and your enjoyments of all things will not only multiply many times, but the effect of your joy will be most beneficial both to mind and body. Gradually your happiness will give you that calmly sweet contentment that makes the whole universe look good. And so long as you dwell in the mansions of that form QF contentment, sickness can never enter your door. Learn to look upon life as a privilege instead of a hardship. View all things, not from the valley of discontent and limitation, but from the mountain top of all that is rich and great and marvelous in the sublimated nature of man. Learn to think that everything must come out better and better if you only do your best, then proceed to do your best. Have no fear of results so long as you do your best, and believe firmly that whatever comes to him who always does his best must of necessity be good. If it does not appear to be good, it is only temporarily disguised, and will soon reveal itself to be the greatest blessing that could have been desired. No person can be unhappy who lives in this thought, and he who lives constantly in this thought will not only become happier, and thus healthier, but he will also discover that things always turn out better and better when we do our best. Do not think that it is necessary to carry such a weight of responsibility. The universe is held in position by the law of gravitation, do not wear yourself out trying to hold it up. Do not think that the human race will be saved through your anxiety, and do not think that your own welfare or success in life will depend upon how much you worry. Do your best, and leave results to the laws of life. Do not worry for a minute, and do not be anxious about anything. Do your best in the present and everything will be better for you in the future. This is the truth. Then train yourself to deeply realize that it is the truth, and you will always be happy. Do your part in the world as well as you possibly can, and let nature carry the responsibility. She is not only able, but most willing. In fact, that is what she is here for. You are not required to carry anything on your mind, and you are not called upon to be anxious about results in a single field of action anywhere in the universe. You are just called upon to do your best now, but to do your best you must be happy. It is easy, however, to be happy when you know that everything will be better so long as you do your best. Make it a point to be happy just as you make it a point to be clean, to be presentable, to be properly dressed, to work well, to be efficient, to be worthwhile, to be true to all that is in you. In brief, make the attainment of continuous happiness and greater happiness a permanent part of your strongest ambition. You will soon find results. Your unhappy moments will become less and less frequent as well as less and less significant, while your happy moments will become so numerous as to almost become one continuous moment, and the richness of your joy will increase daily to a most satisfying degree. Avoid all unwholesome mental states, such as fear, anger, worry, depression, disappointment, discouragement, gloom, sulkiness, moroseness, pessimism, sadness, harshness, resentment, remorse, anxiety, and states of a similar nature. Find fault with no one, condemn no one, antagonize no one, but first refuse to be anxious. Anxiety saps more life and energy in a day than work does in a week. We all know this, and as anxiety cannot possibly be of any use at any time, we are not justified in being anxious for a single moment. To remove anxiety, however, we must view life, not in the old way, but in the new way. That is, we must learn to know that all things contain possibilities for greater and better things, and that we have the power to bring out those greater possibilities at any time and under any circumstances. When we begin to preach and practice the gospel of strength instead of the gospel of weakness, we shall not be anxious any more. To be happy constantly in this deep, calmly contented manner, is to steadily increase the power of harmony in your system, and the more harmony there is in your system, the more energy, the more vitality and the more wholesome conditions there will be in your system. Finally, the power of the wholesome will become so strong and so completely established in every nerve and cell and atom that all disease, if there was any, will have to leave. And if you wish to hasten this great day of freedom, you can do so through a very simple exercise. Whenever you feel this deep, calm contentment, turn your attention upon those organs or parts in your body that require better health. Try to impress upon those organs the same deep, serene happiness that you feel, and you thus produce in those organs a greater degree of harmony. Repeat the exercise as frequently as you can. Try to feel happy in that organ that needs health and strength. Where you feel real happiness you produce harmony, and when you give nature perfect harmony she can restore perfect health every time, no matter what the ailment may be. A little practice will convince you that the healing power of happiness is very great indeed, and it becomes doubly so when combined with temperance. We should therefore write the rule of life in this fashion: be temperate in all things. Be happy at all times. Chapter 12. How to rest and recuperate. When we know how to rest, we do not have to rest, that is, not in the usual sense of that term. Complete inactivity is never necessary, in fact, it is impossible, and every effort to produce complete inactivity is more or less injurious. Every moment of attempted inactivity is a moment of waste, and therefore leads to weakness and ill health. It is possible for the different parts of the system to be temporarily inactive in an objective manner, but it is not possible for you to be inactive at any time. You must eternally act, and to act, you must act upon something. Therefore, if you wish to give rest to a certain part of the system, you must go and act elsewhere. Make no attempt to become inactive in yourself, it is not possible. Besides, such attempts simply prevent the exhausted parts from receiving the peace and rest that are required for natural recuperation. In the human entity, absolute standstill is impossible. If you are not going forward, you are going backward. Regardless of this fact, many people seem to be at a standstill, but they are taking one step backward immediately after having taken a step forward, so, therefore, they are always in action, but never getting anywhere. It is the current belief that no one can rest without stopping all personal and mental action, but the fact is that to try to stop all action in the human system is much harder than the hardest work, and uses up more energy than the most strenuous kind of work. To proceed to do something else is the one secret in the art of resting. When you want to rest and recuperate one group of muscles, begin to use another group. When you want to rest one part of the brain, think of something entirely different. When you want to rest the objective mind, use the subjective, and this is easily done, because we use the objective mind while fully awake and objectively active, and we use the subjective while asleep, or when in an attitude of calm and deep serenity. In this connection, it is well to remember that you will get greater good from your sleep if you give your subjective or subconscious mind something definite to do before you go to sleep. While the outer self is resting in sleep, the inner self should build up the subjective or subconscious side of our talents and faculties, and thus increase constantly the capacity of the mind and the strength of the body. When you give the subconscious mind nothing definite to do during sleep, it will spend the night creating meaningless pictures and situations, a few of which you remember and call them dreams, but when you give the subconscious something definite to do during sleep, this waste of energy in the subjective field of creation is avoided, and that energy will instead be used for constructive purposes that will prove of advantage to you in the coming days. Besides, you will in this manner secure perfect rest during sleep. The idea, therefore, is this: if you want to rest the objective, have your consciousness go and do something definite in the subjective. Never fall asleep in the attitude of weariness, because by so doing you will impress the condition of weariness upon the subconscious, and that condition will be reproduced and brought forth into the personality in the morning, and here we have the cause of that tired feeling that so many people have when they wake up. Go to sleep with the purpose of going into the subconscious and doing something there that is constructive, upbuilding and wholesome, but as you entertain such intentions, place your mind in an attitude that is perfectly serene. We should approach all work in the serene attitude, whether we are to act objectively or subjectively. Perfect rest for any part of the system during the waking state can be secured by learning to withdraw consciousness absolutely from one part and causing it to act wholly upon another part. Consciousness is the result of the I am expressing life, thought and being, and therefore consciousness acts on a certain plane, or in a certain part, so long as the I am gives expression to itself upon that plane, or in that part. Consciousness is always active. An inactive consciousness is as impossible as a dark ray of light. When anything is conscious, it must do something, and it continues to do something, either objectively or subjectively, so long as conscious existence continues. Since consciousness means action in every instance, it is evident that no part of the system can rest until we become unconscious of that part. So long as we are conscious of that part, we will act upon that part, and the energy in that particular place will continue to be used. The purpose of rest is to recuperate or regain that energy that has been used up in work, but it is not possible to regain energy in any part of the system so long as we continue to use up energy in that part, and energy will continue to be used up in any part so long as there is conscious action taking place in that part. To be simply quiet in any part of the system is not necessarily to be unconscious of that part, therefore such rest is not complete. This explains why so many people recuperate so slowly. The reason is that while trying to rest they continue to be conscious of the entire mind and body. Any person who can become wholly and instantaneously absorbed in some other line of thought or action will recuperate rapidly, and so long as he will practice that art intelligently he will not wear out, neither will he find it necessary to retire from usefulness at 80. He will then be in his prime, both physically and mentally, and on account of his extensive experience his service will be of the highest value. To turn consciousness into another channel, reposeful or well-poised action is necessary. When we work in the attitude of poise, we concentrate well and naturally without trying to do so. We thereby give our whole attention to the present action, and all other things are given a complete rest, and on account of our perfect control of concentration, we can give our whole attention to something else at any time desired. When we act or think in a nervous, excited attitude, consciousness moves rapidly through every part of the system, and no part of the system is left free for many seconds at a time. Recuperation, therefore, is impossible under such a condition, and if such a system is in a rundown condition it will continue in that condition until the nervousness is overcome, while if the system is in fairly good condition, it will, through nervous action finally become so weakened and so confused that natural rest will be difficult to attain, that is, unless perfect poise is first secured. That inactivity, or, rather, attempts at inactivity, will waste energy and thereby produce weakness and disease, is readily understood when we examine the process involved. So long as you try to make a certain part inactive, you continue to act upon that part. That part, therefore, is just as active as it ever was, and it continues to use up its energy. Ere long there is not sufficient energy remaining to even carry on the work of repair in that part, and then we have decay, or that clogged up condition that is always a forerunner of disease. It is therefore clearly understood that a great deal of premature senility comes simply because we do not know how to rest. There is no reason whatever why brain workers should lose their mental brilliancy after they pass their 60th year, or any other year, nor is there any reason why the physical strength should diminish in anyone at that age. The physical organs are constantly being rebuilt, so that we wear out simply because we do not give them the proper rest, and our mental activities become dull for the same reason. To master the art of resting, the first essential is never to attempt to become perfectly quiet in the entire mind or body while you are awake. The second essential is to withdraw consciousness absolutely from those parts of mind or body that need recuperation, and become vitally interested in something else. In other words, give your thought and your attention to something that does not require the activity of those organs or faculties that need recuperation. The third essential is to take physical exercise whenever the whole brain needs rest. Such exercise will rest the brain completely in a very short time, and this method, therefore, is infinitely superior to the old habit of lying down and continuing to think about how tired you are. The fourth essential is to give your attention to something that is delightfully interesting to the mind whenever the body needs rest, though at such times we should remember not to give the mind anything to do that may demand heavy or profound thought. At such times light reading of a harmonious nature, or light music, will prove perfect in restoring the body to normal strength and vitality. To enter the loftiness, the beauty, and the life of spiritual thought, is the best method of all for recuperating mind or body, provided you are sufficiently conscious of the sublime to touch those lofty realms whenever you desire. But if you have not attained to that consciousness, you will find it most profitable to begin at once and gradually develop that power in yourself by which you may rise to the calmness, the splendor, and the beauty of the sublime whenever you may wish to get above the usual physical or mental action. When you wish to rest any part of the system, do not try to take your consciousness away from that part. To make this attempt would simply be to concentrate your attention on that part, and thereby continue to be conscious of that part just the same as before. The proper course is to direct your attention elsewhere and become so completely interested in the new object of your attention that you forget completely the part that is to receive rest. When your whole attention goes elsewhere, consciousness will soon follow, and all action will be removed from that part, which for the time being is to rest in a state of inactivity. Wherever consciousness acts, their energy will be used up, but when consciousness is withdrawn, nature will be given an opportunity to restore to that particular part the full and natural supply. That is the reason why we must become unconscious of muscles, organs, or faculties before they can completely regain their strength. When we remain conscious of a certain part too long, that part is not only deprived of all its energy, but the elements of that part are also used up, just as a starving man lives for a while on the elements of his own body. But the converse is also true. When we remain unconscious of a certain part too long, the energies that have been accumulated there will begin to disappear, and that part of the system will decrease in capacity. That is the reason why unused muscles gradually decrease both in size and capacity, and also why unused faculties gradually become more and more deficient in mental power until they are practically useless. Whenever any part of the system has renewed its strength, we should proceed at once to use this new energy for constructive purposes, but as soon as that energy is used up, we should turn our attention elsewhere and do something else, so that renewal may again take place. In this way we use constructively all the energies we accumulate, and as every part of the body is exercised fully and properly, and for the proper time, the general capacity and power of the system will steadily increase. During those moments when we have nothing in particular to do, we should turn our attention upon the development of mind or body, or upon the building of finer mental structures for the future. At such times the constructive use of the imagination can be carried on to great advantage. There is no need of waste of time, nor is it well for the health and well-being of mind or body to ever waste a single moment of time. When your physical or mental labor is over for the day, turn your thought upon something else. Direct your imagination into some other field where you may find new and valuable ideas for future use, or give attention to the further development of mind or body. In this way the tired parts of mind or body, that is, those parts that have used up their available supply of energy, will receive perfect rest, while your time during this period of rest will be profitably employed along other lines. The average person throws away several hours every day by simply being partly alive. He thinks he is resting because he is not actively at work, but the truth is, he is working still. He is using up energy by being consciously active in every part of his system. He is not working at something, but is working upon his own energies, and thereby using them up to no account. This is a mistake that everybody should eliminate at once, because we need all the energy that we receive if we wish to retain perfect health and continue to advance in our own work and development. When you are not working at your particular business, turn your attention upon the building of yourself, or upon some interesting pleasure. When you are not busy at work, be busy at pleasure. Those activities that are called forth during pleasure are produced by entirely new activities in consciousness, so that two desirable objects will be promoted. First, you will call forth new energy and thereby build yourself up along new lines, and second, those parts of mind or body that were active during the working hours will have a perfect opportunity to recuperate themselves. In this manner no time or energy will ever be wasted, and work, rest, development and pleasure will constantly and harmoniously blend throughout the entire system. Chapter 13. Letting go of your ailments. To let go of those things that we do not desire to hold in mind, may seem to be difficult, and yet it should be just as easy to drop a thought from the mind as it is to drop a stone from the hand, and we must be able to do this if we would set ourselves free from those conditions of mind or body that are not conducive to health, strength, and wholeness. In like manner, it usually seems difficult to prevent undesirable impressions from entering the mind, though any person should be able to refuse undesirable mental impressions just as readily as he refuses undesirable food. But the reason why these things seem difficult is because we have attempted them in ignorance of the fact that both the act of letting go and the act of holding on are subconscious processes. So long, therefore, as the subconscious mind is holding on to a thought or any particular condition, physical or mental, you may spend eternity in trying to get rid of it with the objective mind and secure no results whatever. Likewise, if the subconscious is attracting a certain thought or condition, you cannot possibly keep it out by fighting against it with the objective mind. The importance, therefore, of knowing how to direct or change the subconscious in this connection, is very evident. The movement of every muscle in the body is preceded by a subconscious action. The involuntary movements of the body, such as breathing, circulation, digestion, and assimilation are subconscious processes that have been established in the subjective nature of man during ages of human evolution, but the voluntary movements of the body are also subconscious, in the sense that the objective acts upon the subconscious, and the subconscious causes the body to move as directed by the objective. When you move your arm, you do not cause the arm to move by willing to do so with objective action. You might try to move your arm by objectively willing to do so, and try for any length of time with no results. In fact, the more intensely you will the arm to move by mere objective action, the more rigid will the muscles become. When you wish to move your arm, the objective will must act upon the subconscious with a desire to move the arm, and it is the subconscious that will carry out that desire. In like manner, when you wish to drop something from your hand, the objective will must impress upon the subconscious the desire to let go, and the subconscious will cause the hand to let go of its object. The same process must be employed when you wish the hand to hold on to an object. The objective will must impress upon the subconscious the desire to hold on, and the subconscious will cause the hand to do as the objective will desires. The hand will thus hold on until it is subconsciously caused to let go. The reason for this process is simple when we know that the subconscious governs all the forces in the system. No force in the human personality can act unless the subconscious causes that force to act, and the subconscious will cause any action that the objective will may direct. It is the function of the objective mind to direct the subconscious, and it is the function of the subconscious to carry out whatever the objective may direct. When the subconscious undertakes to give directions, we have misdirections, or what may be termed abnormal conditions, attitudes, or actions of mind, and when the objective undertakes to carry out its own directions, we have simply waste of energy with no action whatever. Therefore, whenever the natural functions of the two phases of the mind become mixed, we either have perverted, unwholesome, and abnormal actions, or none at all. The mixing or misplacing of these two functions may be caused by ignorance, or by continued false thinking along any line, but the proper replacing of these functions may be readily accomplished when we understand what each of the two phases of mind has been designed by nature to do. The objective mind is the conscious, wide-awake mind, therefore it knows what should be done each moment, and for that reason is competent to give directions. The subconscious mind is the creative mind, therefore it has the power to produce anything that may be required, and being in full possession of all the underlying forces of the system, it alone can cause the forces to proceed in action or to cease action. It is therefore evident that to produce the desired results in any sphere of action, physical or mental, the objective mind must be trained to give the proper directions to the subconscious. In many respects this training has already been perfected, especially those that are called natural physical movements, but in many other respects, such as the removing or producing of any condition desired for mind or body, this training has as yet only begun. When we wish to move a muscle, the proper directions are given by the objective to the subconscious, because we have been trained to do so in the school of experience. The child learns to walk by training the objective to impress the subconscious with that purpose in view through repeated attempts, and that training is promoted through the acts of attention and interest. When the objective mind is interested in the doing of any act, attention is naturally directed to the subconscious, because interest always causes attention to act upon the subconscious. This process, however, can be perfected to the very highest degree, and this is done whenever skill, art, or proficiency is attained. The child learns to talk through the use of the same process, and it is through this process that the musician, the artist, the artisan, or the acrobat gains control over mind and muscle. The training of the objective mind to properly direct the subconscious is generally a slow and gradual process, due to the fact that imperfect methods are usually employed. We make many mistakes before we strike upon the correct methods, and we continue to make more mistakes before we find new and improved methods. The cause of this is found in ignorance concerning the true functions of the two phases of mind, and also in a limited scope of consciousness. When we begin to employ the principles of the new psychology and a more thorough knowledge of consciousness, both in our daily life and in our educational institutions, we shall find that the process of training along any line, physical or mental, will be perfected to a remarkable degree. In consequence, less time and less effort will be required to secure any particular result, and what results we secure will be far superior to what have been gained before. The subconscious mind controls all the forces employed in the movement of mind or body. Whatever we wish to have done, therefore, the subconscious holds the necessary power, and by properly directing the subconscious, that power will be given the required action and will do what is desired. In the art of letting go, it is this principle that must be employed. The objective mind must not try to drive things out, but must properly impress the subconscious to let go, and when that is done the undesired thoughts or conditions will be dropped at once. It is the subconscious that holds, therefore it is the subconscious that must be directed to let go. To cause the subconscious to let go of certain habits, tendencies, tastes, or undesirable conditions, sometimes requires months or years, simply because we do not know how to direct properly the subconscious in this respect, but when we understand this process, very little time will be required to accomplish our purpose. It is therefore not scientific to think that a certain amount of time will be required to produce certain results. We usually require considerable time in finding the way, but after the way has been found, the time required to secure results is usually insignificant. When the individual is in possession of clear mental insight, the proper way is readily found, however, even though the sphere of action be entirely new. To acquire the art of letting go, the first essential is to understand that it is the subconscious that holds, and that the subconscious will let go only when properly directed to do so by the objective mind. The second essential is, to train the objective mind constantly to act in the closest touch possible with the subconscious at all points of consciousness. In this connection no effort will prove more valuable than that of broadening and enlarging the scope of wide-awake consciousness along all lines. To enlarge the scope of wide-awakeness, the mind should aim to discern the larger reality and beauty that exists in all tangible things, and should at the same time aim to discern the reality and the beauty that exists in all the finer qualities of life. More attention must be given to the finer elements, the finer feelings and the finer experiences that are met in the world of consciousness, because this will cause the mind to gain possession of new fields of conscious action. It will also cause the objective to touch the subconscious at many new points of contact, and wherever the objective touches the subconscious, at that point the subconscious can be directed properly and instantaneously at will. The average person disregards practically all thought concerning the subconscious, looking upon the subject as visionary, and yet he cannot take a single step without first directing his subconscious mind to produce the necessary muscular action, nor can he advance mentally until he trains the objective to impress the subconscious with regard to the action of that advancement. We are absolutely dependent upon the subconscious for everything we do. Instead of ignoring the subject, therefore, we should study every part of it with the greatest of care, and we have everything to gain by so doing. We do a great many things without knowing why we do them, therefore if we can secure certain results through a limited, unconscious action of mental laws, we can certainly secure far greater results through those laws when we employ them intelligently and in the consciousness of perpetual mental expansion. To use the objective and subconscious phases of mind in their true places, and to aim to bring the two minds into contact, at as many points of consciousness as possible, is to use the entire mind intelligently and progressively, and since the objective can properly direct the subconscious wherever the two minds consciously touch, we understand readily how the possibilities of mind become unlimited, and we also understand how every condition in mind or body can be changed completely in the same way. The subconscious has the power to make any change in the human system that it is directed to make, and the objective mind has the power to direct the subconscious in any way that may be desired. Whenever there is anything that we wish to eliminate from mind or body, we should direct the subconscious to let go, and the subconscious will be properly directed to let go whenever we express this desire in the attitude of fine feeling and deep interest. Feel deeply that the subconscious is letting go of the condition that you wish to eliminate, and you have given the subconscious the proper direction in that respect. Through this simple method the human personality can be caused to let go of any disease, any perverted condition, any detrimental desire, or any abnormal state of being. The art of letting go, therefore, is an art that is practically limitless in value. Chapter 14. How the Subconscious Creates Health. To give the subconscious mind definite and systematic training along the lines of health building is one of the first essentials in the attainment of permanent conditions of health throughout the human system. As the subconscious mind is, so are the conditions of the body. What is active in the subconscious is active in the body, but no condition can exist in the body that does not exist in the subconscious. The subconscious mind permeates and fills every atom in the physical body, every fiber in the nervous system and every cell in the brain. In fact, the subconscious mind is the real power that is back of every force and every element in the personal being of man. Therefore, every change and improvement that is desired for mind or body must begin in the subconscious. So long as every action in the subconscious mind is positive, harmonious, wholesome, and health-producing, there will be perfect health in the body, and as the subconscious is more and more thoroughly trained in such actions, physical vigor, physical vitality, and physical endurance will increase in proportion. By giving a few moments every day to the training of the subconscious in health building, the body will finally become so brimful of vigorous health that it will become practically immune from every ailment that was ever known. To proceed, employ only such mental actions as tend to impress health upon every thought, feeling, and desire. Every mental action that conveys the idea of health, the desire for health and the feeling of health will impress health-producing power upon the subconscious. In other words, when the idea of health is impressed upon the subconscious, that impression will place in action forces that are health-producing. When you habitually think health into the subconscious mind, you give the subconscious a system of training in health-producing, and accordingly, the subconscious will produce better and better health as it is more perfectly trained. When you habitually talk health to the subconscious mind, you are causing all the forces and elements of the subconscious to focus their actions upon the idea of health.